You're live.
I mean, you can say
Good morning, Dan.
Yeah, morning.
Nothing wrong with that.
Ready?
Let's stand for the pledge of allegiance and moment of silence.
First thing,
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Robbins,
Here.
Commissioner Rushton,
Present.
Commissioner Bailey,
Present.
Chairman Wessel,
Here.
Commissioner Sotosilva will be arriving late. Commissioner Alguier,
Here.
Commissioner Lautner.
Present.
Thank you. We have an agenda. Are there any additions or deletions? Commissioner Lautner?
Yes, could we please kick off number 8?
Anything else? All those in support of the amended motion, say aye. Opposed? Did we not have a motion?
We don't really have a motion.
I messed up already, and it's only 1 after 9.
I would make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll support it.
All those in support of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay, we have an agenda. This time we have public comment. We would ask you to address the board and ask you to talk to us by introducing yourself, if you will, before you start. Bill?
Again, back to the sign, we demand honest elections in our Leelanau County by replacing Dominion voting machines with secure paper ballots. It's not too much. The handout I just gave was a letter I just actually sent to you real late here, just maybe a half hour ago. And I'm just going to read down through it. Hi, Leelanau County Commissioners, Clerk, Supervisor, Prosecuting Attorney, and Sheriff, plus 251 additional county and township administrators, employees, and board members that this goes out to. I've attached our 3 most recent files, 11, 12, and 13. They're described down at the bottom there a little more, showing election fraud in the 2020 election. I've also recently added 336 Leelanau County school educators to our email list, to the TC family email list, bringing the email list up nearly to 600 Leelanau County leaders when we add in the current 262 Leelanau County government workers and board members. With the new educators list in mind, I've attached our About TC Family and LGBTQ flyer to warn them if you see something, in other words, if you see something, say something. That's why I'm saying something about the false foundation of the LGBTQ movement. And if you go to the flyer that is attached, and you click on the pink swastika, Alfred Kinsey, the second one, and the 1973 APA Born Gay Hoax links on the front left column, and the marketing techniques, click on the Kirk and Matson's After the Ball media manipulation game that are used, especially in many schools, to groom the children into the LGBTQ movement. I also attended an Up North Pride event this week. I'm just going to ad lib because I'm running out of time here. Up North Pride had their events for a week celebration downtown. I went to all their events. People disagreed with me a lot. I was just had my sign, the rainbow belongs to God sign with a family looking at the rainbow. And they disagree with the flyer, many of them, about TC family and the LGBTQ flyer. But they would say you shouldn't be here or whatever, but no one gave me any trouble about that. So I compliment them and I complimented their leaders. Hey, this is great. We can communicate at least, which is what it should be. However, one young man grabbed the sign on Saturday and took off with it, tried to bend it all up and threw it in the lake, threw in a phone of a couple guys that I never knew, came to my rescue to just say, hey, just give him back the sign. He said, no. So they threw it in the lake. They fished it out the next Sunday morning when I got back at their brunch just to hand out peacefully more flyers. And one of the leaders came out and said, hey, we fished it out. It was noticeably creased and damaged, but it'll work, you know. And so I said, well, no problem. You don't have to pay me the $55 of the value. I'm not sure how he's going to pay for the $1,000 phone that he threw into the lake with one of the guys, but the cops were alerted. And anyway, so overall, it was really great at their events, and that's the way it should be. We should be able to talk over these important ideas. And so back to the flyers down at the bottom, they're all online now. Number 11 is computer expert Jeff Lenberg explaining many 2020 Michigan Supreme Court election red flags. That's where I got the idea from to make the handout number 13. Number 12 is a cast vote records detecting the fingerprint of fraud. By using those records, they're showing 98% of the counties, 400 that they've looked at out of 1,000, there's 3,000 counties in the country. They show definite machine fraud. And the last one, number 13 again, is this one. If you look at Antrim County and you look at Leelanau County, either one of them from those statistics, you'll see that's very unlikely to happen. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any commissioner comment? Down on our agenda, the administrator update.
All right, I have a couple updates. Excuse me, I got a little bit of a sore throat this morning. Change in the weather. We'll start off with a fashion statement. This is one of my favorite jackets, but I only have worn it 4 times. It's the Mid-Michigan Honor Flight jacket. And I've worn it to Washington 3 times. And then I was asked to speak at a veteran's funeral, Dean Robb, so I wore it there. So it's a special jacket. And I'm saying that because today 80 veterans are meeting in Camp Grayling. 4 or 5 are World War II veterans. And the rest of them are mostly Korean veterans, including 3 from Leelanau County. They're going there. And then tomorrow they'll be leaving for Washington for the honor flight. And one of the chaperones this year is Commissioner Lauter. So when we get done here, she and I will be driving out to Camp Grayling with the veteran and another chaperone, Mr. Trumbull from Leland. And the flight leaves tomorrow morning. If you're free tomorrow evening around 8 o'clock, I know it's a bit of a drive, but if you go to the airport in Traverse City, it's an incredible event. It's packed with people with flags when the veterans come back. And they get escorted one by one off the ramp. And so everyone's there clapping and cheering them and flags everywhere. It's a very special event. And you'll see a lot of tears there. I've been there, I think, 5 times. I want to thank the Grand Traverse Band because they have been a partnership with us on this program for the last 5 years. And I think through their help, we're able to send 18 veterans to Washington on that trip. Unfortunately, over half of them have passed away already since 2016 that have gone on our trip for us. So it's critical. This is the first trip since 2019 because of COVID.
23 veterans who signed up passed away between 2019 and this trip. So it's critical that they go. So this trip, they really focused on the Korean War veterans, who the younger ones now are almost 90 years old. I think 88 is the youngest Korean War veterans. The youngest World War II veteran, I think, is 96 now. Peter Simon, our neighbor, he joined when he was 17. He's 96, and he was one of the youngest ones there. And so if you get a chance, go to the airport. I'm sure we'll be covering the media. And Commissioner Lauter, thank you for volunteering to do that. And I just once again want to thank the Grand Traverse Tribe for their support. I've written 2% grants, and they've always been very supportive. And that's where we're able to help cover the cost for the guardians. There never is a fee for the veteran. A lot of times they want a son or daughter or someone to go with them, and they may not have the resources to pay the guardian fee. So that's where the Grand Traverse Band has come and helped me with that. So it's been a great partnership. If you have a chance, go to the airport tomorrow, and I'll guarantee you will not be disappointed. It's about 8 o'clock ballpark when they get there. It's a very special event. So look forward to that. We had some training sessions for our employees, and Matt, you want to give an update on what occurred last week?
Yep. So last Friday, we were able to hold 2 sessions to train our employees annually. We were able to get 39 employees to come through the training on Friday. We did cover topics on red hide fight, our emergency flip charts, AED and familiarization, and the new trauma kits that we have at the courthouse. So we're able to go through and run all the employees through on how AED operates, how the operation is, how it walks you through CPR and shocking and whatnot, and then the trauma kits, what all is included, how it differs from a regular first aid kit with Band-Aids. And so it was very beneficial. We had some good conversations back and forth. So we're looking to set a date later this month for a makeup for those who were not able to attend. But it was a very positive day on Friday.
And Matt, you've been doing this for several years now.
Yeah, this is our 3rd year that we did this entire training for all of the courthouse and government center employees.
I think the staff is appreciative of it. And Matt and Kelly do a great job of that. So thank
Try to
you.
make fun with it.
Thank you. Yeah, they have some fun.
And these new kids have that red Mercurochrome they used to put on our cuts when we were kids.
No, they're like a glorified stop the bleed kit. There is quick clot in there, so that would work for that.
Chemicals behind that too.
Yeah, right.
As a follow-up from last month's discussions, several committee meetings have been scheduled. The Buildings and Grounds Committee is meeting on Monday, October 10th. And the Dam Membership Committee is meeting on Monday, October 17th. So you'll get updates on those at the November meetings, and hopefully we'll have recommendations on both those issues. And Commissioner Lauter, I know there was a request from the parks about a bench. It'd probably be good to have that on the agenda for the Buildings and Grounds also. So we can, I understand you and Casey Noonan are talking to family about some type of donation, so we can talk afterwards, but that'd be good to talk about on October 10th. Okay, all right. I spent yesterday afternoon in Cadillac with the 6 county administrators talking about community mental health, and it's probably our most productive session that we've had. You know, this has been a controversial topic on how to proceed when you have 6 counties in a partnership and everyone has different views and opinions how that should occur. It's been a challenge, but I thought we made a lot of progress yesterday. Just a couple updates for you on that. There's a new interim director. His name is Brian Martinez, and he lives in Traverse City. He has extensive experience working with groups, organizations, and helping them through struggles. And he became the interim director this week. I think yesterday was his first day, actually. Search committee has been formed with reps from each of the 6 counties, and the job for the director will be posted by Friday. The goal is to have hopefully someone in place by March. By the time you do the postings, screen the candidates, go through the process. March may be a little optimistic, but they're working towards that goal. They also are going to have a dialogue on the salary structure. So the candidates and the board is agreed upon what the pay scale will be to avoid what happened last time. And I believe, Mr. Russell, the Leelanau County rep will be Greg McMurrow to the search committee, which is good. Probably the biggest thing we agreed is, as we go through this restructuring, we really need to know what the issues are from the families who are experiencing challenges. So Grand Traverse County held a community forum. They brought in a consultant, Sarah Bannon from Lakeview Counseling Services. And they thought it might be a negative situation, but it turned out to be very positive. A lot of feedback from parents, a lot of the feedback from people who are working in the industry, and some great ideas came out of it. And so what I suggested is that all 6 counties do the same thing and have a forum. And I thought it'd be critical that we had the same format. And none of us 6 administrators have a background in community mental health. So we've asked them if Sarah could come in and do it for all 6 counties. And it may be covered by some federal funds, so it may not be any cost to us. So I'll keep you updated. But I think it's critical. What was perceived to be potentially a negative meeting in Grand Traverse County turned out to be very positive. And the parents and the caregivers and everybody else were really grateful for the opportunity to express their views, and some great ideas came out of it. But the issues are different in each of the counties. I thought as we go forward, if we're going to restructure and come up with new bylaws and new standards, we need to know what the issues are right from the parents and the caregivers and the people participating. So I'll have more information on that probably next month, and hopefully have a date, because we like to do this sooner versus later. And also they're going to do a survey on gap analysis to see where are the pitfalls, where are services not being provided. And it could be simply a lack of knowledge. It could be travel. One of the things they're looking at is more telehealth. Younger people feel very comfortable doing that. And so instead of driving maybe 2 hours someplace or having to leave your house, you can do it on your computer and still get services. So there are a lot of good ideas going back and forth. We're going to start modifying the bylaws hopefully next month. One of the things we hope to do prior to hiring a new director is address the issue of governance. And one of the things that I think we're going to propose is that when a director is hired, it has to go to the county board, and at least 4 of the 6 county boards have to approve the hiring of the director position. So more involved with the county boards and more of a structured approach. So you'll be hearing more about that. These were just ideas that were bounced around, but it was a very productive meeting. And I think for the first time, we felt like we're all working together, and we all want to solve this problem and not start from scratch and dissolve the agency and having to go through that entire process. So it was very productive. And I believe there's a meeting coming up fairly soon, isn't there, Mr. Wessel? That the board's gonna have more dialogue.
The 3rd Thursday.
Yeah, and one of the things we talked about is the 6 county administrators and the board have to work together to be on the same page and come up with the same goals and ideas, how to go forward. Because it's easy for us to sit in a room and talk about issues, but we need to hear it from the board, and we need to hear it from the parents and the caregivers that we're all on the same page. Because there's some legitimate issues, but I'm optimistic we can get through them. It will take probably a year or so, but we're making progress. And finally, and probably the most important thing, is we have a birthday this month. Patricia? Yes, it's next week, I believe. So I have to give you a cherry pie, of course.
Thank you very much.
So happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chad.
Number 25.
Patricia, would you introduce the next agenda item?
Yes, I'd be happy to. We have asked Chris Scherer, who has just come on screen, our program manager for our broadband project, if he would give us a little bit of an update. Chris has been working really hard bringing this whole project together, not only with Point Broadband and with the communities, but also with Agra Valley, and working with, we're just trying to work on the 4 townships with another ISP. So Chris, would you give us a little update and also share with us some of the exciting announcements that I know you're going to be saying?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. And to the rest of the commissioners, thank you for having me today. I'm here to give you an update. It's not the kind of updates I like to give, but we are moving forward, and I think we're still on schedule, but we've had a little bit of a setback. So I just wanted to go back and kind of recap how this year has gone. As many of you know, that there's been a tremendous amount of work that took place over the last 5 years to bring us to this point. We had the survey last year of every home and business, and we had to use that to determine who had high-speed service and where it was lacking. And in March of 2022, we contracted with Point Broadband to provide high-speed broadband service to 7 of our 11 townships. We are working with the other 4 townships, and we expect to have an agreement in place soon and a plan to also reach all of those. In April of this year, we had a launch meeting. Once we had the contract signed with Point, we brought everybody together in the county building there. We had officials from Cherryland Electric, the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians, the Leelanau Peninsula Economic Foundation's Lift Committee, county commissioners, the County Road Commission, and a few others that were all committed to work with Point Broadband to make fiber in Leelanau County a reality by 2023. Work was scheduled to begin this summer, starting in the northern portion of the county. The Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians, who have created this backbone of fiber across the county, planned to contract with Point Broadband, leasing the necessary fiber we needed, the transport or backhaul, as you might call it, to Point Broadband so that they could begin service in Leelanau Township, where the largest number of people reside who lack broadband service. The Grand Traverse Band ran into some unanticipated problems that caused a delay in their contracting with Point, but Point, while attempting to resolve the issues, they continued with their design, surveying, the make-ready work, the permitting work, and other engineering activities in preparation for the Grand Traverse Band to resolve their concerns. Unfortunately, the Grand Traverse Band will not be able to offer their fiber transport to Point at this time. Given that Point has a contract with the county to finish providing service to 7 townships, they need to begin more activities, construction activities this fall. And so we're switching their focus to the southern part of the county, where their point of origin is, and they will start to work there while they start to build their own fiber to reach the northern region of the county, which obviously is going to take some time. Residents in the northern part of the county will be disappointed to hear this, as we are. I'm one of the most disappointed. However, we are optimistic, and I know Point Broadband shares this optimism with us, that the entire project will still be completed by the end of 2023, despite the delay that we're experiencing right now. In addition to that, as many of you know, Agra Valley was providing wireless internet services, and although they have one location, one tower up, they have also run into challenges with the Omena Tower and the Maple City Towers. The Grand Traverse Band was unable to provide backhaul for them as well, and so they have changed their plans, and they're working on a microwave solution as a transport to these 2 locations. The microwave study, as well as the hardware, has been ordered, and once they receive the material, they will schedule a tower climb at both locations to get this equipment installed. The fixed wireless equipment, which is the side of the system that actually connects to each of the homes, is already in place and ready to go. They just need to get this backhaul in place so that they can offer their services. They are hoping, their plan is to have the 2 towers live by the end of November. They're pushing to try to actually get it done by the end of October. but the feasibility of that is not certain right now. So that too has been delayed. But to kind of pick up this conversation a little bit, what I would like to do is show the commission and those who are watching out there what our how we've progressed on the map. And I'm trying to get to the point where I can share my screen. And here we go. Can everybody see that map?
Yes.
Okay, good. What? I got too many screens in front of me. I wanted to make sure I had the right one up there. So we've had this map prepared to launch publicly for some time now. We have been waiting to resolve some of these concerns I had just mentioned before we actually did it. But we are going to go ahead and make this website live by early next week. And I just wanted to give everybody an opportunity to see kind of how this is going to work. As you can see, we have the entire county mapped out with the different colors. The blue is where we have existing charter service. The red is where we have existing Cherry Capital fiber services. And the remaining parts of the county, the unserved areas, we have the ability to now look at each address by parcel and kind of find out where we're at and what to expect. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to use the county building as an example. There's a couple ways that people can navigate this once it is live. They can do just what I did just now and zoom in and navigate to their address. And once they find it, we have the government center right here. If I click on this, we'll see we get a pop-up that shows up down in the corner here that says that service is available by Spectrum. It's capable of 1 gigabit per second. And then there's a link here to the website that will link you to the Spectrum website and be able to do more. The other areas, in this hatched area, this kind of orange hatched area, this is one of the parcels that will be served by Point Broadband. So if we click on that, you can see we get a pop-up, shows the service date is expected to be done by 12/31 of 23. It's capable of up to 2 gigabits per second. And again, we have the link here that people can just click on and go straight to Point Broadband's website and explore their options further. Now, another way that they can get to this site, if you notice, there's some additional information, address information that comes up as well. But if you're not real comfortable with navigating maps, you can simply go up here and type in your address. And as you type the address, it should populate. There it is. And it'll kind of finish what you're typing, hopefully in anticipation of your own address. But we click on that. And again, it takes you right straight to the same, you get the same result as if you'd navigated to it. This is going live. We've kept it fairly simple. We don't want to put too much information out there that would complicate it, but we wanted to provide a high level of the schedule and who to expect in your area. And so as soon as we get this launched early next week, we will probably make another announcement and let everybody know that how to get to it, how to navigate to it. It'll be part of the county government's website and maintained by the county. So it'll be, should be pretty easy for everybody to find. And with that, that is all I had on my agenda. I would turn it back over to the county commissioners for any questions.
Any questions?
First, Chris, thank you for all of your work. It's comforting to know you're in there managing this whole thing. I would love an update on the progress for a solid contract for District 6 and so on.
For
So there are a lot of houses in Solon too.
Solon Township,
Is it Casson that's the worst?
Right, yeah.
Okay, well, District 6. I know about it.
Yeah, you have to forgive me. I'm not familiar with the actual district boundaries.
Whatever, Empire and Cleveland.
Okay. We are in talks with Charter, actually. They are in construction, building areas. Let me go over to that area. In Casson, Empire, Cleveland, and Glen Arbor Townships. They are in construction today, building areas that they're under contract through the RDOF program, the FCC program. And we are, I think, really close to an agreement to fill in the remaining gaps, these white areas that you see on the map, as just an extension of what they're doing. They are building fiber. A lot of people are concerned about Charter because they've traditionally been a cable TV provider, but they have made a decision to go entirely with fiber optic infrastructure here forward. And so all of this new build that they're planning is going to be fiber based all the way to the home. And we are down to it's just a few hundred homes that are left that are not in the plan, that I think they are by far in the best position to be able to pick that up as part of their current activities that they're already doing. So I don't have an exact date yet. As soon as we do, we will let you know. But yeah, the conversation has not stopped. We have just been spending a lot of time making sure that we have every address correct, every location that we had some uncertainty about. And I personally went back and rechecked a few addresses myself to make sure that we've got this list right, so that once we launch the project, we know on 100% we're going to get all of the unserved addresses taken care of.
And the good news is we're also now looking at potentially a USDA, not USDA, MEDC. So there's some other grant opportunities that weren't there before that came out of some recent meetings that my high launched. So it's nice to have options for funding. This also enhances the interest in spectrum. I think that's a true statement, isn't it, Chris?
I'm having a little trouble hearing you, Commissioner, but
yeah, I was just saying through the My High efforts that there are now monies available that weren't before, so there might be some other funding opportunities that will provide options there for how we finance this particular phase of the project.
yes, that is absolutely correct. There's a new program that is supposed to be launched before the end of this year called Robin, that is putting another $250 million into the state funding for these types of projects. And these 4 townships are pretty much at the top of that list as being prepared to apply for that money. And we don't need a lot, not in relative to the overall budget that they're putting out there. So we feel that is going to be a definite way we can get this wrapped up. That is also in preparation of the larger funding that's coming next summer. Not that it's going to have a lot of impact on Leelanau County, because we should have everything already in motion to get everything completed. But there's potentially another $2 billion coming into the state of Michigan next year for the entire state to build these types of projects. So we have little concern that, about the funding at this point. We just want to make sure that what we're providing is going to reach everybody that is currently without service.
So I have two questions. So I assume their price is getting better than it was initially, spectrums? Have they come down?
Yes. Yeah, just simply
Okay.
through defining the areas better. That's one of the processes we've been going through, is that there wasn't a clear alignment between what we felt was unserved and what they had identified as unserved. But we've made a lot of progress there, and the list has been, I think, completed now. We're just waiting for Charter to come back with their final offer.
Thank you. I've got one more question, if I could. Any chance if we do the work now, when more money comes available later, is any of that reimbursable?
Well,
For work already contracted?
if the Robin project works the way everyone's hoping, it will, and funding becomes available, the county won't be putting it anywhere.
Okay,
It will all come through the grant, through the ISP.
thank you.
Rob Herman, the map would not be possible without your work. And will you come to the table and talk to us a little bit about the launch and how that's going to work and how residents could get to that
Yeah,
next week? You've worked hard on this. Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Ty. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I'll talk to Chris about it this week and just make sure that it's finalized. It's pretty much set to go. I mean, we could do it, this afternoon if we wanted to, honestly. But I'll just push it up to the website, and then if there's any specific page on the website that Cheddar Laurel wants me to put it, we can.
I'm sure we'll link at the very front of it, so you can find it.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, it's all set to go.
So any resident can plug in their address.
Their address, their name, or their parcel number, and it'll take them right to it. And yeah, I mean, there's not much to it, but I wanted to make it very streamlined, because sometimes when you add a lot of stuff to web maps, it gets kind of bogged down and confusing. So we just want to show who's here, who's there, and that's it.
Patricia, then Melinda.
I just first want to thank you, Rob,
Yeah.
and Chris, because this has been, it made these simple and streamlined, but it wasn't easy.
Right.
Getting it together and
Sure.
figuring out how to make this possible. And what a lovely tool for residents to be able to go in and see, okay, who's there currently and who's going to be there. So I think this is going to be a tremendous asset. So thank you,
Yeah.
Chris, for all your hard work, and Rob
Yeah,
for
thank you.
figuring this out. That was not an easy task.
I didn't realize, Rob, you were in the room. Well, thank you for coming up. Yeah, and Rob has done a tremendous job. He and I have worked together quite a bit over the last few months, getting this refined. I should mention too that this is a live website, and once we do start construction in certain areas, it will be tracked through this website. And the symbology that you see right now with the hatched lines that show who's going to be where, that will change as certain areas are activated. So when residents go to look at the website, they will see that, it's planned on being activated next month, or they might find out that it's going to be activated next week. And they could even find out that it's already on and they're able to call and place an order. So we're working very closely with Point Broadband right now, because they're in the largest area. We will also be working very closely with whoever does the western 4 townships. That's tentatively Charter at the moment. That they too will be part of that in helping us keep it updated and accurate as possible. So it is a live site, and Rob has played a tremendous role in keeping that updated, or keeping that ready to go. And so, like he said, he can do it this afternoon. We just got a couple of little tweaks we need to make relative to the announcement I made earlier about point broadband. And then it'll be good to go. Thank you, Rob.
Yep, thanks, Chris.
Commissioner Lautner?
So I just want to be clear for people. So if they go to leelanau.gov
Yep,
and then look for.
and then from there, we'll have to figure out exactly how we want to, you
I'm
know,
just thinking we'll put a link at the very top of the
Okay.
page, and that way we can, I mean, you can work with ordinance, but it'd be nice if
Okay.
someone could just go to that and see a link right to that.
So you start with leelanau.gov and then navigate from there.
right, correct.
Rob's definition of simple and the rest of the world's definition of simple may not be the same. Simple for Rob, but us, the rest of the world.
Yeah, we do have a broadband, what do you call it, folder already there.
Right.
Were you thinking of putting it in there or? on the-
I was thinking about putting it on the GIS page and then maybe on the lift page and then also right there on the front page as well, like Chet said.
But we just put a
Yep.
link on the front page. So if someone just does Google's Leelanau.gov,
Yep,
they'll get to our webpage and there'll be a link right at the beginning. They'll see, they don't have to go through all those different sites.
right, right. But if they do, it's also gonna be buried as well. So
For people like you.
we'll just make sure it's all of us. Yeah.
Do it simply or add a little chat box at the bottom, because then you can chat with everybody who can.
You could just put his cell phone number.
Oh, gosh,
Same.
we don't want to do that.
Any other questions for either Chris or Rob? Well, we didn't like the shift in the timetable, but you've worked hard, both of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We now have our new interim director for the Board of Health, and Michelle here to give us an update. Dan is interim right now, and you might give us an update on what the status of that is.
Sure,
Well, if you would.
absolutely.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Michelle. So Michelle just handed out the 2021 annual report. We'll go into that in a second. But as Ty requested, I can give you an update on what's going on with the health officer position for the health department. So I've been serving as the interim health officer since May, the beginning of May. And as you may or may not know, Leelanau has a contractual agreement with Health Department Northwest to provide the health officer services. So I work for Health Department Northwest, and I'm the interim health officer there as well. Where we're at right now is, when I first got into this role, very steep learning curve, not sure if I wanted to, put my head in the ring for the full-time job or not. I decided that I did, and I'm working with the Board of Health there, gave them some options about which route they wanted to go, if they wanted to post it to the outside world or stick with me. They decided they wanted to stick with me with a couple caveats. They want to do a evaluation, kind of an interview type thing, which is actually going to be today at the regular Board of Health meeting there in Charlevoix. So pending, the outcome of that, that's where we're at. And I will, we'll find out after today where we go from there. Maybe negotiating a contract with the Board of Health there, and then would be serving as a health officer for there and Leelanau District Health Department. So that's that quick little update. Just to go into the annual report that was handed out, the 21 annual report, hoping to get the 22 annual report to you a little bit quicker next year. But really the overall theme of this annual report is commitment, growth, and in collaboration. 21 was, as we all are aware, was a challenging year for all of us. But it was also the 25th anniversary of our health department here, which began in 1996, October of 1996. So it was almost exactly 26 years ago now today, but in 21 it was our 25th anniversary, and we had 25 employees when we first started. Now we have 50. So I mean, that is the growth of our agency, which has been mirroring the growth of our area here. So and really, the other piece of that commitment, all of our staff have been tremendously committed to the community throughout all of 2021 and into today. You know, with all the challenges that we had, we couldn't do it without our staff, and we couldn't do it without the community as a whole, and the support of the Leelanau and Benzie Board of Commissioners. So just to give a few highlights as we go through the annual report, you know, we have in personal health, really the biggest highlight is we began some partnerships with schools to provide nursing support. We have 3 nurses that supported schools throughout which started in 2021 to help with COVID issues. Schools had a tremendous challenge with trying to navigate everything with COVID, and it was recognized at the state level, thankfully, and we were able to get funding to have 3 nurses that helped out the school districts in Leelanau County with contact tracing, quarantine, testing, the whole 9 yards, when there was all those rules that they had to follow. And this led to exploring ways for this partnership to be sustainable, which we're continuing that and really growing that today. So that is a silver lining that has come out of the pandemic there, because we're all the other health issues and behavioral health issues that we have to deal with school age children. It's just been very a good program to keep going. In environmental health, one of the biggest highlights is the implementation of the public portal for residents. I think you're all familiar with. So now a resident business owner can go to our website and get into the public portal and actually look at their records, septic and well records, which was a huge monumental task for our environmental health staff. Eric Johnson, our environmental health director, and Dodie Putney to get that going and really get that on the webpage to increase. It not only increases efficiency for staff, but transparency. It's the ability, some people work at different hours, maybe couldn't make it into the office. They can go into the portal, get the records they need. It's freed up time for our front office staff to do other things. It's been really a great thing. And now we have Benzie County on that as well as of last month. So, and the other factor with that is that because the records are scanned, they're now protected from, let's say, a fire or a tornado or something like that. Unlikely, but it is nice to have that protection. But we couldn't talk about environmental health in 2021 without talking about the huge increase in land use activities. Just to give you an idea, in Leelanau County from 2020 to 2021, well permits increased 37%, septic permits increased 27%. The combined septic and well permits, which are typically used for new houses, are up 20%. In vacant land evaluation, someone wanting to buy property to potentially build on in the future was up 90%. Which those numbers are huge. And going into 2020, when we were first dealing with the pandemic, we had no idea that this was going to be a result of that. We were all thinking that that everything was going to kind of tank and go downhill. It did the exact opposite, and because of people wanting to be in the area, and who can blame them, right? So that's where we're at with environmental health. And we can't really talk about 21 without talking about our COVID response efforts at the health department. We administered 25,517 doses of vaccine in 2021, which is a monumental task for our staff. In a normal year, pre-COVID, we would issue in a year, or give in a year about 2,300 vaccine doses. So that's over a tenfold increase. And it was really, it took adding staff, bringing in temporary staff, it took volunteers, it just took a whole community effort to get that done. And just would really like to thank, everybody involved in the support of the Board of Commissioners, and also thank Sutton's Bay Schools and the VFW in Lake Leelanau providing their space. And just really, again, a shout out to all the amazing volunteers that we had in Leelanau County to help us achieve that. Looking at the financial status in 2021, we're on solid financial ground. And really, if you look at the local appropriations, which we are very appreciative of local appropriations from the Board of Commissioners. That were 11% of our budget, which is relatively low in the state. Some health departments are up in the 20%, 50%, and even as high as 80% of local appropriations. So, which are part of the health department budget. So we are our staff are adept at seeking grants and sources of funding to keep that low. And we just really appreciate the support. Those local appropriation dollars are used to match for grant matching funds. They're not restrictive, so we can use them to in other areas. We can use them for Medicaid match, which sometimes brings, for every $1 in local appropriations, we can bring in $2 of Medicaid match. So very important funding, and we really appreciate that. Just to give you an idea, for 2023, our local appropriations, we actually reduced for fiscal year 23 in Leelanau County. We reduced them by 4.7%. And that is really a function of, our financial standing and where we're at with all the extra funding that we got during the COVID response, and the fund balance that we have. So we felt was appropriate to just keep an eye on that and keep it fair. So that's really all I have going through the annual report. I entertain any questions you might have about the annual report or anything that is going on right now, or if you'd like any sort of update, I would be happy to provide that.
Thank you for this report and for your work, for your very, very important work. You're so critical to the county. You went through some really nice figures pretty quickly.
Mhm.
So well permits were up 37%. Septic, what did you say for septic?
Sure. So septic permits,
Inspections.
yeah, so septic permits were up 27%.
And inspections.
Inspections, I didn't have the increase from 2020 to 2021. I just jotted these particular ones down from the permitting side. I can get that number for you.
No, that's.
Yeah, from
I missed the
inspections.
ones that you did.
Yeah.
And then the allocation from the county was 4.what%?
For fiscal year 23, local appropriations were reduced 4.7%.
Oh, I remember. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Yes, Melinda.
Just on your page 6, a lot of those numbers seem down for 2021. Is that?
I'll let Michelle
The communicable
Yeah.
diseases.
talk about that.
You know,
Yeah.
it was actually, it was very interesting throughout COVID. There were a fair number of communicable diseases that the numbers were down, and I think that's more a reflection of routine testing. When you look at things like sexually transmitted diseases and hepatitis screenings that people get when you go to a regular well-child checkup. And our well-child checkup and a regular adult health appointment. So we didn't do as much testing as we normally would, and so there were diseases that we didn't detect that we would typically detect.
I have a question on that chart. If I go to my family doctor and have one of these reportable diseases, does he automatically contact you, or does this represent just the ones that you're aware of?
The labs do. It's virtually all an electronic transfer now into a statewide system. It's a secure system for diseases. There are a handful, well, I don't know, I think there's approximately 100 diseases that are required to be
Mhm.
reported. And so those are automatically reported. So this isn't all of them. These are the ones that were reported, that we had at least a case in the last year.
Mr. Risson?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, in this reporting that it's not just local reporting, it's like statewide or.
It's statewide. It's a
Statewide,
statewide
same
system.
with,
And
you know,
actually, even if in another state, if a Leelanau resident were diagnosed with something in another state, that's theoretically, that state health department notifies our state health department, who then passes it on to us. And then that allows us, our staff can reach out to those folks and make sure they can get health care, they have health insurance. If there's any, concerns about people that are around them getting a disease, we want to check into that. If it's a waterborne disease or a foodborne, we check with our environmental health staff to see if we can resolve it. So
same with immunizations as well.
as far as reporting goes,
Yeah.
those aren't state to state. Within Michigan, there is the system. So if you get a vaccine in Michigan, it's mandated to be reported in the system. But out of state, that we don't get that information.
So where can a layperson go to look at the statistics for the state,
For statistics for,
the whole state?
well, it depends on what statistic you're looking for. If you're looking for communicable diseases, and I would say if somebody's looking for data, you can go to the state health department and you can check, do a Google search. If anyone has data they'd like locally, they can always call us and we'll help them figure it out. The state website's not always the easiest to navigate when you're looking for information. So, but there is a lot of data available, and I'm happy to help sort that out.
Commissioner Laverne?
I spoke with you about this, but it would be helpful for all of us to have some sort of information or links to information on long haul COVID. It is happening,
Mhm.
and there is absolutely nothing locally
Mhm.
to help people navigate those issues. It's real, and people need help with that.
Yeah, I think that, and you brought up a really good point, because it's sort of a hidden, it's not reported anywhere. So we have no idea, as a health department, we have no idea how many of our residents right now are struggling with long COVID. But I think that it would be, we at least can really work on getting some information out. Signs to look for, when you
Helping
see
people
a
know where to go,
physician.
what to do.
Yeah, right. And we have, I think that might be a great, we have our community connections program, with many of you have heard of. So, anybody, you can get referrals to those, you can refer yourself. And if you have any concerns with, and it can be anything from transportation, getting health insurance, healthcare, we have people who can help walk you through and get you linked up with care. So I'm thinking that might be a great place that folks can call if they're struggling with that, and then just at least help get some referrals to some providers.
And it's really interesting because my husband is struggling with that.
Mhm.
When you start talking to people, they say, "Oh, my wife has that. Oh, I got that." But nobody's talking about it otherwise.
Right.
But then you start hearing that people are struggling individually, alone, with all of this. So that would be helpful.
I do. Thank you for bringing that up. And we'll really try to get some information available on our website and through social media, so that, folks have somewhere to go to get some more, get further information. It's such a, as I said, it's something that the symptoms people experience are so different. The healthcare system is very scattered throughout our country. So there just isn't some good, solid data and research on what people are experiencing and how to treat it. Not yet.
I think
anyway, not yet.
I think in the years to come, we're gonna see a lot
Yeah.
more about that.
Right.
through
But that doesn't
studies
help.
And you know what? So what my husband says is, "Oh, good, there are 4-year
Right.
studies." Meanwhile, I'm going.
Right,
It doesn't help the folks that are
doesn't.
struggling today.
exactly.
That help.
Yeah.
Other questions? Good luck this afternoon, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank
It was
you.
nice meeting all of you today and I, appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda, Judge Kulkowski. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting us.
What you're reporting on today has been receiving lots of attention in the newspaper.
That's for sure. So we all know me, Judge Kromkowski. This is Ryan Douglas, one of our probation officers. So what I'd like to cover today, just kind of overview, is what the problem is, how we are handling it, within Leelanau County, and solutions that are being discussed. Okay, there's no fix in the works, but there are discussions going on. And clearly it is in the news. The Record Eagle has a 3-part series going on. IPR is covering it. 7 and 4 is here. Detroit News, Sheboygan News. Seems like every week, someone's sending me an article, or I'm seeing an article about the struggles that are going on. So what we're talking about is a shortage of secure detention residential treatment beds for juveniles. And this is occurring throughout Michigan. It's not just Leelanau County. And obviously our caseload doesn't equate with some other bigger counties or even Grand Traverse counties, but we're not exempt from the problem. Over the past several months, we've experienced a great deal of difficulty finding these beds for youth who are in need of this level of supervision. And clearly not all youth are in need of this level of supervision. We have a fantastic prevention program. Most of our youth are working with our probation officers. We have services in place, but there are youth, girls and boys, that are in need of more intensive care. And supervision care, taking care of them, which requires supervision, because not only are they a danger to themselves, but they're a danger to whoever they're living with, their families. And it also is a safety concern for the whole community. I've asked Ryan to come to kind of describe, what we do if we get a call in the middle of the night or during the day that law enforcement has picked up a juvenile, and the juvenile is out of control and may need to sit somewhere before being returned to the family. He's also going to discuss, in not giving names, but a recent case that was really, really challenging for us. So Ryan?
Yeah, typically, just to walk you through how we might end up with a youth that might need a secure placement. Kind of 2 paths. Number one, if we have the young person on probation or involved in the court, there might be an incident that one of us get a call from usually a police officer saying there's an incident. At that point, we might seek the judge's authorization for a placement. I would then, or our colleagues would then go through a list of trying to find a bed. And that's where we're at today, is there's just no beds. I mean, throughout the state, I think when we've had to look at placing a young person, there's some 29 to 30 facilities that we would call. At recent times, the answer is always no, we don't have any beds. A lot of times these facilities are operated within the county. And so a lot of these counties aren't taking out of county youth. So it's a big problem. If, for example, we don't have a jurisdiction over a young person and there was an involvement and the police responded to that, we might get a call. Typically, we would maybe ask the judge to do an emergency order to place the youth until we could hold a hearing. A lot of those cases, again, we run into no beds. Those youth usually end up in the emergency room at some point, which is usually not the place for them to be. They'll go through maybe a emergency CMH evaluation, and then a lot of times not meet criteria for emergency hospitalization. That in turn sends the young person home to their family with really no other means available. The most recent occurrence that happened was a young person that the court was working with for extensively for several years, actually, doing a lot of prevention work, extensive history of assault behavior to the family, to police officers, to myself. Find this young person a facility, and he's getting treatment that he needs, I believe, and is safe, and his family safe, and the community safe. So that's just kind of an overview of where we're at right now with a specific example.
So literally, Ryan or Treese or John or Sarah, they're calling all these facilities, they're on the phone, talking, no. But with this particular case, we even went out of state and talked to, heard of Boys Town in Nebraska. Well, Boys Town had a bed available, but for initial supervision care, it was going to be $750 a day. And they were proposing at least a month, 2 or 3 months for this particular use. So that would have been for even 1 month, $23,000. That the county doesn't pay all of it. The child care fund handles some of it, but that we were going to Nebraska. But when you go to an out of state or even a facility that isn't that close to Leelanau or Grand Traverse County, when youth are in placement, the idea is to have the family also involved in the care and in therapy, and seeing their son or seeing their child. This young man is in Calhoun County, so for his, it's kind of a haul to get down there to be involved in his treatment. In Grand Traverse County, in the last 7 months, 7 juveniles have been housed in the Grand Traverse County Jail, sight and sound separated from adults because no placements were available. So for a youth to be in a county jail facility, there are federal and state regulations in protecting the youth, and they can't see or hear the other individuals there. In addition to what they were doing in Grand Traverse County, they ended up placing a youth in Arkansas, and the cost for that bed was $550. So throughout the state, it isn't, I don't think there's been a meeting that any of us have participated in, either with my colleagues, judges or staff, judicial workers, care workers, that this issue doesn't come up. The Michigan Probate Judges Association passed a resolution in July, and I can give you the whole resolution, but they indicated as of July 6, 2022, 129 juveniles are presently waiting placement in child care institution, with placement delays typically being 60 to 90 days or 120 days. The examples they gave are similar to ours. We're very fortunate. We have very few numbers, but it just takes in 1 or 2 cases that we're in a crisis. Where is this young person going to go if the family will not take him back because they're fearful, or they're taking him back, but it's risky. So they described KD, a juvenile who was removed from her abusive home, but had to be housed within a courthouse, sleeping on an air mattress for 9 days until a placement was secured. Another juvenile, ZR, was admitted to a hospital emergency room for mental health issues and required 24-hour supervision between caseworkers and his mother for 28 days. IG, another individual who was a sexual perpetrator, had to be released back to his home with a tether placement and constant supervision for 20 days. So, there are there are horror stories, some very serious, some just outright scary, but this is what we're facing. And when we face these issues, once again, detention is the last resort that the court, any court would use. We have used attempted electronic monitoring, tethers, but this falls short if a youth is out of control. So they have a tether on, but they're in the house where they may have assaulted a grandmother. Tether doesn't do much good. And I don't know if, I guess the sheriff is still here, and we've talked, but police officers routinely take a youth who's out of control, assaulting people in the home or just going through tough times, to Munson for an evaluation as to whether they'll qualify for mental health placement. And honestly, Munson's emergency room has become the de facto detention center. Following an evaluation, if it isn't deemed serious enough to be held for a placement, youth are then discharged back to their parent or guardian. Once again, as we've discussed, who's often was the initial victim of their violence. Other times, if they do require mental health placement, they may sit in the ER for days, weeks. We had a young man who was there for 6 weeks waiting for a placement. And once again, if the parent or guardian is too fearful to take them back home and chooses not to take them from the hospital, then the Department of Health and Human Services is called, and they may discuss, threaten the parent, the guardian. If you don't take your child home, we're going to charge you with abuse and neglect because you've abandoned your child. So it gets pretty wild at the ER. But if the family still says no, I can't handle him or her, they're the other children in the home, whatever the circumstances are, then the department, because no one's taking the child from the ER, has to scramble potentially to find another family placement. And often it's a family placement where this young person doesn't have a whole lot of contact. And the question of how that family is actually, what kind of training they have to deal with the circumstances. So looking now, kind of describe the problem, but looking now towards solutions. Our court has hosted now 2 local formal discussions on this. And Chet Janik, Ty Wessel, the sheriff, Tristan Chamberlain from the prosecutor's office, and our court administrator, Cameron Clark, participated. And our court also convened a meeting with the family court administrators, not only ours, but Antrim and Grand Traverse, and the family court judges from those other counties. That's our 3-county circuit. And the Grand Traverse County has had ongoing discussions on this issue because they're facing bigger problems than we are. And Cameron Clark has gone to those sessions. So big problem, but no easy or short-term fix. And these are the options that have been raised. And once again, they're options. And I don't know how many times I've told the sheriff that I'm not lobbying that our local jail should be converted to a juvenile detention center. But it has been raised by others in terms of this is what we're looking at. We're looking at existing secure buildings in our region that might be converted to a juvenile detention residential treatment center. Now, we know, but it has come up in other discussions from surrounding counties that the Leelanau County Jail has a 72-bed capacity. Today I looked at the roster and there's 35 there and 16 are not from our county. So the Board of Commissioners, we consulted legal counsel, and the Board of Commissioners has the sheriff runs the jail, but the Board of Commissioners has the authority to reconfigure the structure if that was an option that we wish to pursue. Camp Pugsley, what is the current condition of that facility? Grand Traverse County is talking about maybe building a new jail. So could their old jail be converted to this facility? Actually, there's also been discussion, there's the room in the basement that was being, maybe the health department, there is a room in this building. And we're just, listing places. for any of these, so, it's judges, court administrators, we're sitting around a table listing ideas, but we're not architects, we're not experts. So ideally, it would be a good idea to do this properly, to have an architect to provide a neutral, experienced eye and provide some suggestions. And, that it's up to you, but since other counties are saying, well, what about Leelanau County? Actually, last night I was at the cherry pie debate, and we'll say, who suggested, it was a suggestion that the entire Leelanau building be converted to a detention center, and that our inmates maybe go to Grand Traverse or somewhere else. So, I mean, Leelanau, we have a fantastic building. It's relatively new compared to other jails. So I would suggest you consider maybe that we hire someone to go through a neutral eye, just to give it a once over. Is it even possible? And if it was possible, what would it cost? Because money is the issue here. We're also looking at available land that could be used if a new facility needed to be built. Or could our county jail be converted to a small number of short-term beds, sight and sound protected? That would help. You get these calls in the middle of the night, and where is this young man or woman to go? Also, a broader issue, but examining the reasons why other state facilities may have beds, but not enough staff to stay open or to use all the beds. So in our list of some 29 places that we call, some say we have no beds and they just are full. Others say, well, we have, but we're going to save them for our county youth. Or others say, we have beds, but we can't have them be used because we don't have enough staff. So is it the pay for the staff? I mean, the working conditions are tough. So, I mean, there are beds, but not enough staff. Another thing that was talked about recently is the development of respite homes in Leelanau County. And we used to have these, and Joe Polo was involved with getting some of them together. I don't remember the names of the families, but they were long-term Leelanau families who got some training, and their homes were a place where youth could be taken for a cooling off period until other supports for the family can be put in place that we currently don't have. And there's a shortage of foster care. So there's a lot of shortages going on here. We're also looking in terms of monies, so Sheboygan County, they reconfigured their jail for a juvenile detention center, and they used monies that are available through Raise the Age funds, which is a pocket of change that the state has, or ARPA funds that other counties are looking at. We've also reached out to actually a letter went out yesterday to all our state reps, state senators, explaining the problem to them. I think they are aware of it, but asking that we schedule a meeting after November 8th to discuss funding options for a Northern Michigan facility. So what, even though we're here in Leelanau County, it is a statewide issue, but on top of all that, there are no secure detention residential treatment programs, or there aren't enough. Basically, there aren't any, but aren't enough in Northern Michigan. So I think we're all kind of looking towards a regional solution. And having a facility on a peninsula may not be the best idea because families are coming from other parts of the state. If we had a facility, for example, in Grand Traverse County that would have 25 beds, on average, we have our caseload is pretty low. We might use 1 to 2 beds here and there. Grand Traverse County, bigger situation, more city kids, so to speak. They were saying that they would probably need 10 beds. So if we had a facility with 25 beds, well, why do we need 25 beds? There are other counties that are looking for beds just as we are. And on average, these other, if you can find a bed, they are renting out space at $250 a day. So if we had a regional facility that could cover Northern Michigan, whoever was operating, court counties who were operating it, not that you want to make money on kids, but monies would be coming in because we wouldn't be, if we built it big enough, we wouldn't be using all the beds. So funds would be coming in for staff, all the costs that go along. So in summary, Northern Michigan courts have frequent situations where we need either short-term or a longer-term residential detention program. We've not been able to find the beds and are left with really no realistic safe options when a bed is not secured. And not only the safety of the youth, but the safety of our community. I mean, the incident that we described with Ryan and John having rocks thrown, they weren't, well, I think you both got a little bruised and, but that same young person, and I think it's pretty typical when law enforcement gets involved. In 2 instances with this young man, the young man ended up, giving the officers a pretty tough time. He's a little guy, but he was punching the officers. So for the safety of our staff, the community, the families, and even law enforcement, we have a situation on our hands that needs to be addressed. And it's frustrating, this isn't the first time anyone's talked about this. It's been talked about, for, I'd say, even a couple of years at the state level, but, come on. So that's why we're taking an approach here locally, trying to move this for a Northern Michigan facility in other parts of the state, and we should know what they're trying to do, but it's a little frustrating that action hasn't occurred so far. Build a building, get some staff, have some additional beds. And we'd like to have it in Northern Michigan so that our part of the state families don't have to travel down to Wayne County or Macomb or Calhoun to see their kiddos. So that is where we are. And those are some of the options that are being tossed about. There probably are more, and we're only on kind of the brainstorming part right now, but we'd like to move this along and get more serious and concrete.
Thank you, Judge. Just before we go to Commissioner Lautner, I know the sheriff has some strong opinions, and we'll ask him to speak to it. And Chet has received a legal opinion from our attorney that he might be able to summarize. But first, questions for Ryan or Judge?
Thank you. How many children do we have in these situations in our county? How many children does Leelanau County have?
I mean, on probation and prevention total?
No. So
that are in need of detention right this very minute?
Beds that may be placed in a detention center. How many of our children are we looking at?
Okay, my understanding is currently none, but in the past 6 months, we had 2 that one ended up staying at the emergency room for 6 weeks. And the other person we just described, was beating up his grandma. And we finally found a place. So our numbers are low. So currently, unless I'm missing somebody, we don't have any currently like, oh my gosh, this person needs to be in a detention center.
Yeah, I would say there's been several instances, probably more than 2, I would say somewhere between 4 and 6 of incidences that have happened where police have responded to.
In the past, 4 to 6 in the past?
Probably in the past 6 to 8 weeks, yeah.
6 to 8 weeks?
Yeah.
The law enforcement's gone out?
Well, I would say between their caseloads.
But they didn't need to be placed in a detention center.
That they did need, or
Did
that they have been?
So the question is, how many youth currently, if we had a spot, would we be considering sending them to detention?
Probably none at the moment right now.
Okay, and of the 2 in the last 6 months, how old were they, ages?
The young person I work with is 13 years old.
13?
Yeah.
And
I believe
the others.
Therese has a 15 or 16-year-old that was placed.
Yeah, our jurisdiction goes until a youth is 18. So.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sotis Little and then Commissioner Roberts.
Yeah, and before I make the comment, Brian, I think piggybacking on Commissioner Lautner's question, I think of these 6 to 8 kids in the last 6 to 8 weeks, how many of those kids would you have placed if you had a place to put them? I think that's really what was being asked.
Right, I think all of them, if given the opportunity to place them, or if we had jurisdiction over them, all of them, and there was a bed available, all of them would have likely gone to a facility.
And sometimes just very short term,
Yeah.
sometimes it just takes, a long weekend, kind of get someone's attention, have, an eval done. So in almost all of our probation orders, there's a provision that says, if you violate probation, we hold 30 days in our back pocket that could be for detention. I would say there needs to be a hearing and I have to decide yes or no. But if I really felt you got to go somewhere for 30 days, I can't really pull that out of my back pocket very easily.
Right. And the comment I was going to make is, first off, thank you for pursuing solutions, because I will share, we saw firsthand exactly what you're talking about when I was coming to my husband emergency a few weeks ago. And we were there at 2 in the afternoon. Finally made it to not the interview rooms, because the place was swamped with people. And this is something we have every day. The hospital is just inundated with cases. So we ended up finally being seen 10 hours later in the back hallway where they had put up beds, which was the best they could do. But there were 2 people there accompanied by police officers, one of whom was a youth who was very out of control. And you've got a lot of people, some who are there with serious issues at that point in time in emergency, and yet you've got this young person who can't help themselves, that are really out of control, trying to be calmed down by the staff, taking lots of staff to do it, and also by the officers. So to say it's disruptive and it's not a good solution, I just want to validate what you said, having seen it firsthand. Thank you for what you're doing. We've got to solve this problem. We absolutely have to.
And if I can just tailspin on that, I think the numbers are important. However, the outcomes are also probably more vitally important, because if we're not providing the care to the youth, the family, and the community, and that youth who is assaultive is returned to the community or the home and does something that's regrettable, I think that's probably more important than the numbers at that point. So.
Thank you, Anna, for all the work you guys do. I know it's not easy. I've been there. I did speak with your court administrator last week. And what he shared with me is about 4 or 5 cases a year. It changes every day, changes every minute. He said there was about 210 nights, I think, that's what you guys have been spending. So on average, he said maybe on the low end, it's like 250 a night. I think that comes out about 52,000 that we're spending just on these kids outside. Like I said, there's no easy answer here. I'm a little concerned, caution, I should say, about putting anything in our basement. We can't put our employees at risk. We got to think of that. That we're thinking of it, but you're upstairs. I don't want some Julie go nuts, take the old officer, pleasant cries, and we have those Julie in the clothes. Who knows what could happen?
Right, for sure.
Like I said, we got a lot of work here to do. And it's not just going to be Leelanau County. It's going to be everywhere. I think we do need a regional center somewhere. The concern I have is, yes, we have the ones that have the mental health issues, but what happens if we get the Joey that's 16, 17, commits a homicide? Maybe he's not out there on the mental end, but, we all know that's going to take a trial, year and a half to get to, so we're going to house somebody at $500 a day outside somewhere. And it's just, like I said, we've got a lot of work to do. It's not going to be an easy answer. Nothing like you should rush into it, I should say, but I do thank you for all the work you're doing, and somehow we're gonna get through this.
Mr. Bailey?
So what happened to the facility that used to exist on Beaver Island? There's a school there for
I can-
youth. Yeah.
I thought that because I was superintendent of that school
Oh,
district.
okay.
That was part of Charlotte Public Schools. That was an alternative education program.
Right.
It was not court related, it was not court mandated students. These were students that struggled academically for many reasons. And it was an alternative ed program. Unfortunately, the federal funding got modified where financially the district could not continue to operate the school district, and it closed in 2014.
Okay.
But it was not court related.
It wasn't a secure facility, although you can't get off the island, but beyond that, yeah.
Students voluntarily chose.
Yeah.
Could you give a brief update on the attorney opinion?
Yeah,
And then we'll hear from the sheriff.
And all of you received a copy of it, and it simply was a part of our dialogue we had about just brainstorming and the use of the facility. The question came up, who has authority over that building? There's no question the sheriff has authority in the operations of the jail. But the physical space is something that's controlled by the county board of commissioners, not just the jail, but any county-related property is controlled by the board of commissioners. So the jail, the operation of the jail is up to the sheriff. The physical space, the use of the space, whether it's expansion, renovation, anything, is up to the board of commissioners. And that's just a very simple.
And every county must have a jail.
Every county must
Some
have
have
a jail.
suggested that we might use Grand Traverse County, but every county does have to have their own jail.
Let's provide a jail.
Yeah, you could form partnerships, yes. And some counties have formed partnerships.
Commissioner Rushton?
Yes, a question for the judge. Where is the state on this issue? Obviously, they're aware that this problem is widespread across the state as a whole. So where is the state?
Well, so there have been some juvenile justice reforms. There's a task force that was working for a couple of years. They made recommendations and a number of them were adopted by the state. And one of them is looking into this issue. Now, whether they've hired the person to spearhead that, I'm not sure. This is all kind of recent. But the probate judges group met with the head of the Department of Health and Human Services. And I said, so that meeting was just in September. So I said, how did that go? And they were frustrated. They said the department came in and just kind of listened. So it's just kind of murky as to, the state maybe have some solutions, but it's not trickling down to letting the courts know as to what are you proposing? They know it's a problem, but I don't think anyone's really grabbed it and said, okay, we got to deal with this now. But perhaps this new department that's going to be under the state court administrator's office, that person is charged with looking at this issue and the whole issue of lack of psychiatric beds for youth. That's in the works, but the progress is, if there is some, it's not known to most judges. What's going on? Maybe nothing's going on. They're just listening.
When I look at the cost of the jail, whether we have inmates in there or not, we still have staff we have to support, building we have to fund, and everything that goes along with that. So, for Leelanau County, if we're talking 1 to 5 kids over the course of a year, I don't know how that financially is practical. A regional facility in northern Michigan, I would think would be a solution. 1 or even 2. However, without state help, I don't know how counties are going to be able to afford putting these places together.
So when we had our meeting with the Grand Traverse and Antrim, so Cameron Clark, who's away right now, but he did some thinking, some talking, looking around, and he was saying ballparking. He believed you could build a building for like $9 million. So $9 million to us is a heck of a lot of money, but when the state has $9 million, so his proposal, and I think we put it off the chat, give us the $9 million, we'll build this, but once it is up and running, and we are having other youth come in that we're getting revenue from, that we could actually, pay back the state. And Chet said, no, they give you the money, you don't pay them back. But, it isn't.
It's
Well,
operations though.
yeah, well, it's 9 million for the building, but there's still the issue of staffing, and that recruitment and retention of folks. Law enforcement, and we're not asking our corrections officers all of a sudden start handling juveniles. It's a totally different world. So, you need individuals who are trained, who are qualified, who are committed, not only with their heart, but with their expertise as to how to, we want youth to go into these facilities to come out better than when they went in, as opposed to worse. So yeah, staffing is always going to be an issue.
And community mental health, how does that play into this? Under community mental health, do they not have to qualify under Medicare or Medicaid?
They have to qualify under Medicare to get community health dollars unless they were housed at a jail, which would not be the youth.
Right, so there's roadblocks there for children. If they don't qualify under the state, then community mental health is of no use to them.
I mean, there's no simple answers.
Mhm.
You've been discussing this for months, trying to find a solution. It's statewide. I listened to NPR. They had a story about it. It's a very complex issue. We talked about it at our Northern Michigan administrators meeting. Everyone's has the same issues. Everyone's trying to find a solution, but where's the funding coming from? And the state does not seem to be, at this point at least, interested in dialogue about it. It's the perception I'm getting. And that kind of, I think, is. And
Yeah.
maybe you're starting to educate them and maybe trying to move the needle a little forward on that.
Well, for sure, we're pushing
Good.
on it, and we want to have a meeting with we have from the 3 counties. I mean, there's a variety of reps, and some of those reps may change after November, but we want to bring them into the conversation with regard to funding, or what do they see as the roadblocks at the state? I mean, who do we need to, what door do we need to knock on to say, okay, let's do this?
I would just add that, to your question about counties operating, we're not reinventing the wheel here. Midland County, Kent County, Wayne County, most recently Sheboygan County has taken, the sheriff there has taken the ball and said, we're gonna do a juvenile detention. So how they're doing it, I'm not sure that's something we could explore, but it's not like we're the pioneers of doing a county-run juvenile detention facility or treatment facility. So I think there's somebody's doing it.
Let's get our reps to get our state secretary to talk about it. If the curling club in Traverse City can get $2.5 million to renovate a building for curling, can't we get money for the detention center? The senior center in Traverse City got $7 million. The state has $5 billion in revenue funds that they have to spend. Can't this be a priority? Everyone says this is a priority. Let's see what we can do.
Are you referring to ARPA funds?
Partially, yes.
Okay, so there's an opportunity there.
Yeah.
With ARPA funds, but like I said, there's gonna have to be some sort of a partnership. I don't see where counties can, over the long haul, fund, especially up here in northern Michigan. You've got a lot of smaller communities where funding is just.
Yeah, I think it has to be a statewide
It's gotta be
funding
something.
or some type of partnership from the state, because you're right, these small counties cannot do it. Everyone else has issues. And to take this on and fund it and create a partnership is gonna be very, very difficult. A couple years ago, we talked about regional morgue. Kind of the same thing happened, a lot less controversial. Everyone's in favor of it, but who's gonna fund it and who's gonna take the leadership and who's gonna hire the staff?
Three commissioners that have been waving their hands, and let's hear from them, and then let's.
Yeah, if I can just finish with my last comment.
But you weren't recognized, Commissioner Rush, and I had called on 3 and then you, so you need to wait if you would, please. Commissioner O'Gara.
So I guess I just need to clarify too. So the judges have been meeting on this.
Oh, yeah.
there's not a task force,
There, well,
or there is?
well, there was a task force on a variety of juvenile justice stuff. And one of the recommendations that's been adopted is, is the juvenile justice, there's a name for it, but there's a new entity that's been created that will be housed under the State Court Administrator's Office, a new division. This is called the Juvenile Justice Detention Work. I don't know what, I can't remember the name, but they're tasked with this issue. There's a lack of beds.
And so they are under what organization?
The
now?
State Court Administrator Office, scale.
Okay.
So they were just like placed there, and whether they've already, and this is all recent, within the past 3 months that this has come down. So whether they've actually staffed that division or hired someone, we haven't heard who that person is. So, it's gotten that attention that at least there's going to be a state agency entity looking at this. So that's in the works. I'm not sure how far do they even have office space. I'm not sure how far they've gotten with that.
So about our jail, it makes sense. We have this beautiful facility that's not being used, but geographically, it doesn't make sense. Because you're going to have to not only have families from the region be able to come here, but staff. And staff aren't going to be able to locate here. So while that may look attractive, maybe we could transport the building, it sure seems like it needs to be in a place like Grand Traverse, an area that could support the staffing that would be needed, because you can build a beautiful facility, but if you can't staff it, you run into that problem all the time with your calls. We have room and no staff. That's going to be a challenge in itself. I hope that we need a task force. We need to, invite our senators. Elections just mark things up right now.
So we hope to have a
Everybody's out
meeting,
trying to
we
get
hope to have a
reelected.
meeting in November, and our next kind of regional local meeting is October 19th in Traverse City. So we have a follow-up meeting to the meeting we had last week. And, if the board wants to be more intimately involved, then you can designate someone to come to these meetings and be part of the discussion. And in Grand Traverse County, and once again, I mean, still sitting back there, you still sit, okay, so, a number of us have talked with the sheriff, and he was at one of the local gatherings. But in Grand Traverse County, their earlier meetings involved law enforcement, community mental health to a certain degree, the courts, and their county folks. So, a lot of people need to be at the table to have those thoughts. And once again, in terms of the Leelanau facility, all you said is right on. And I guess that could be our answer when people say, what about your place? You don't even have it full. And we could say, well, it's true, it's on a peninsula, how are we going to staff it if folks have to come to live in Leelanau? Other counties may wish to use it, and that would provide some funds. But there's issues with regard to all the locations. So if you want us to go to the meeting and say, Leelanau jail is off the table because of those reasons, you can say that. Or we could have someone go in with a neutral eye and even look around. Maybe there could be just be, like 2 to 4 bed temporary, very temporary sight and sound spot. But if we had someone go in and just give us an answer, well, you could do this, but it's going to cost 20 million or whatever it's going to cost. If someone went in and said, it's feasible, blah, 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 or it really isn't going to work, and why, then, we would have, more of a reason to say yes or no to this option, just as with Pugsley and the old jail. And other places have been talked about, some schools that have shut down. There are buildings out there, Twin Lakes Camp. People are talking about all different kind of locations that there's land and some type of structure there. So once again, I'm not lobbying it be in Leelanau, But it, at every meeting I've been to in northern Michigan, they say, well, what about your jail? And I say, what about it?
I'd like to suggest that the purpose today was awareness building and we're not, we need much more discussion and I think obviously we're not going to solve it today, but I'm looking at our agenda. We're going to have to move on shortly. Let's recognize Patricia and Rick and then Deb and then let's move forward.
Clearly, these are our youth in this northern region. I think it's wonderful that the state is looking at doing something. You're right, it's gonna take time, and whatever they end up doing may or may not address that. In northern Michigan, we need to stop looking at what won't work and do what you were suggesting, Judge, and that is, how can we focus on what we can do? Forget about what we can't do. And we know what the problems are. What can we do? And I think I'm hearing you saying, asking, is this board committed to have representation in some capacity, or as Commissioner Algar is suggesting, be part of a task force or whatever? But we need a commitment from the counties in northern Michigan that we're going to address this problem and move forward and forget about all the reasons why it won't work and start focusing on how do we make this work and solve the problem, because it's our problem. It's our youth, and they're not benefiting from what's going on now, no, neither is anyone else. So it's something that I think we should do, whether it's state funds or bringing in our legislators, but let's have an organized effort. Let's appoint somebody who represents this commission. Let's be at the meetings, let's move forward, let's find the solutions. That's what we have to do. We just quit talking about it. Do something.
Thank you. First of all, then reviewed the 482 pages. One thing, yeah, we have this jail over here, but what people don't realize is we would have to shut our jail down. I mean, it can't be both. It's either going to be a juvie center or it's going to be for adult population. So then what do we do with our regular population? Say, now we have to put an animal somewhere. I think what we really need to do is going to be a long-term study here before we come up with the answer. I guess what I'd like to find out is, in the interim, can we house, like in these situations at midnight, so that you can try and call all over the state, can we have couple cells over there? It doesn't happen that often for our own people. You guys, because if I remember right, in the old days, I mean, they could be housed in there temporarily, and then the next day or within 48 hours, they're in front of you, Judge, and then you make a determination where we can find the housing. But to help us out in the meantime, see if we can have a couple beds over here available, so at midnight we can get them in there the next morning in front of you, and we'll come up with an answer where we're going to house them from there.
Thank you, but I have no further comment.
Sheriff, would you like to come forward and speak? Again, this is awareness today.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. It's a very perplexing question because it is a statewide issue and is not something 83 counties should be saddled with financially or have the fiduciary interest in it. That they appear to be shoving off this direction. There is a regional plan to build a center. Actually, the center is built to convert the center that used to be a juvenile facility in Lake County, which is 2 counties south of here. The undersheriff of that county is very enthused. I've talked with the judge about it. I think Commissioner Wessel, I've talked with you about it. Commissioner Robbins, you are correct. That's a almost 500-page manual. You have to have counselors, you have to have nurses. We have a nurse at our jail 4 hours a week, and that is in the afternoons on Friday. You have to have a nurse the whole time when you have juvies in there. You have to have counselors, you have to have mental health professionals. It is a huge topic. To make it real clear, we have a facility. When you walk into our office in the front where Jan's desk is, the door on the right is a juvenile holding cell. We are not allowed to lock it, correct? And a volunteer sits there as long as you get volunteers.
If the child is tired and they go to sleep, it's an easy gig. If they're fighting and arguing, they can get up and walk out. We have no authority to stop them. We have no authority to run out, chase them and tackle them. What's the point? We can house an incorrigible child for up to 6 hours at a time under state laws, and Lara licenses our jail facility. The Michigan Department of Corrections controls jail facility. There's a 468-page manual. It's very, very complicated. How that formula works is very, very difficult. Where we all need to do, Commissioner Little, you're so correct. We need to get on the same page, not say what we can't do, what can we do? We bring the legislative people in here at both the state and Senate levels. We bring local media in here. We work with the judges, courts, work with the local sheriffs. Let's get a facility built somewhere in this region that's commutable for families, that's reasonable for transportation costs, where you can house someone who is incorrigible. You're not talking about a kid not doing the math. You're not talking about a kid knocked off the parents a couple times. You're talking about incorrigibility. I lost this eye on the 24th of January, 2020 by an inmate in that jail. This is not something that you basically just walk into without thinking about. Our jail administrator, Todd Roush, is on top of things over there. We're housing adults. We have a pod design. There's linear cells configuration, and there's pod designs. We have a pod. In order to house juveniles or create a couple rooms, we have to basically make that jail more or less inoperable. We had that problem when we arrested people that were involved in attempted homicide with a male and female, both charged with the same crime a few years back. And they were yelling back and forth up and down the wall. And there was a lot of innuendo and a lot of things going on. We had another in there that should have been in a mental health facility who screamed and yelled all day and all night, threw himself up against the wall and claimed we were hitting him. Of course, we have everything on video. We're not even in the room with him. And then we have another in there who was raised in a very difficult situation, who screamed and yelled, did karate kicks and turned the TV up full blast, and other inmates couldn't sleep. This is not something that people who are not in this field should be making determinations on. I think the idea of a task force is fine. But I think when you need a tumor removed from your brain, you don't want just an employee at the hospital doing it. You don't want a triage nurse, you don't want a janitor, you don't want someone specialized in something else. You need a brain surgeon. And that may sound funny, but Todd Roush is our brain surgeon. I, as sheriff, have the fiduciary responsibility to run that jail. If that were a facility where it was a jail, and for some reason this was in the middle of the state, and you took the area down across from the Veterans Monument and you built a $10 million building, that's fine. Administer out of probate, administer out of the state, whatever, that's fine. But to disrupt the system we have over here would be very harmful to not only the county, but also to our individual employees. I can't see, after talking with them, I can't see any support whatsoever from the people working in jail to jump into the juvenile world, because if you know anything about it, they have a very difficult job. It's very hard to deal with these kids because they're basically incorrigible and you can't touch it. So Commissioner Wessel, I gave you that manual. It's an immense volume of responsibility additional on top of what we have. So my suggestion is we all grab what we can, take it to a task force, run to our legislature, see if they can create funding, whether it comes from ARPA or whatever. I think there's plenty of state funding out there on and beyond ARPA. I don't think it needs to jeopardize any county plans or county money. Well, let's get the state to take an interest in regional facility concept. Let's get something that's commutable. When I say that, I mean 2 hours or less, which Lake County clearly is. And let's get behind that. Let's get this facility built. If you have any specific questions, but I mean to tell you, if we walk out of here right now and we go over to our lobby, I'll show you the juvenile holding cell we have. We talk about a temporary cell. We have it. If they want to get up and walk out, they can. So what's the point? And we can't chase them after that. And that's really hard to grasp, that we have incarcerated people with rules. Males can't see females, can't have contacts. People with AIDS or hepatitis or COVID can't be in the cell with this one. People who fight a lot can't be with this one. We have a lot of dynamics in politics that your corrections deputies deal with on a daily basis. It's an immense job for them to keep that organized there, and they do a great job. And I think we would be throwing sand in the machinery. So when we're done here, I would be glad to host you over there to see the walk-in, walk-out facility. It's already there in the lobby.
So there is a task force, this Antrim, Grand Traverse, and Leelanau. So I'd like to propose that one of you come to the meeting, that you send a representative too, and players at the table, and fashion how we're going to make sure that the state reps, come in November, kind of get that going. But yeah, but there is a task, we haven't called ourselves a task force, but there is an entity that has started meeting, and we're meeting again October 19th. I think it's 3:00.
Well, one commissioner already passed me a note, said they wanted to be on that task force. If any other commissioner has that interest, please let me know, and we'll notify you this week.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
okay, thank you.
Any
Thank
last
you.
questions for any one of them? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to
Okay,
speak.
take care.
Appreciate it.
Deb Rushing, would you like a 5-minute break?
I would say that for one. Yes, thank you.
Please mute.
I didn't
please unmute.
So you're not surprised I got that tweet?
No, I thought. I was in Pittsburgh, New Jersey. And I read about it recently, I read a good review. But I said, there's one about children.
Nobody gave you any K word.
No, I can go over afterwards, but that's okay. Thank you.
I called and they said.
A friend of mine, they're like, yeah, her stuff, but we stayed in.
Man, depending how quick you are, depends whether you get a cake or not.
Oh, okay, I will be quick. Should be pretty easy. There's motivation right there.
Should we extend our break 5 minutes and eat our cake and then start a meeting? Is that okay?
Okay.
Matt, you have time to grow around and get this.
I'll hold off.
And we don't all have to talk with our.
I know it's this morning, yes. Andrew, we're taking a break to eat some cake.
Oh, perfect.
In your honor.
Good, yeah, you can come back again.
Thank you, Andrew.
Congrats.
Well, I'm really glad you passed your test.
I am too, yeah, it feels like I got a big chunk of my life.
What an accomplishment. Thank you for your celebration.
Oh, I've got 11:30. Got 11:30.
11:30?
Yeah. Yeah. It must be right. We would have done it. Yours or did you go to what? I gotta double check her.
What roll call?
Friday
That's
after
great.
Friday or Friday.
That would be like.
That was correct. Did I write it down right? That's right.
That's right. Good point.
No, I'm not gonna be there for parts. I am. I'm here Thursday.
Friday at 1, I have. You have 1 o'clock? I have 1 o'clock.
Uh-oh.
What's that?
What time are we meeting Friday? I had
Friday.
11:30 and she had us one.
It's, I think the open forum for employees, 11:30, the interviews at 1.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so we're both right.
Oh, yeah.
Meet and greet.
Open forum is 11:30 to 1 or 11:30?
Will there be
to
cake?
12:30? I don't know.
I'm sure Chet could supply appetizers.
Yeah.
For what? For
A
what?
meet and greet.
Yeah.
The interviews at 1 o'clock.
You want to know if there's cake Friday?
Fun.
Maybe she's the one that
Cookies.
opened trout.
Pardon me?
Is it bring your own appetizer to the meet and greet?
Yeah, BYOA. You bring your own appetizer.
I thought the employee was after the interviews.
Originally, we had 2. No, it's before. Yeah. Originally, we had 2, but Mr. Coleman could not come Friday. That's why. Originally, we talked about having 2 on Friday, 1 on Tuesday afternoon, but now we're having 2 Tuesday afternoon. You got an email from me last week with the whole detailed schedule.
And then I got one from Laurel with a listing.
Yeah.
And that's where I took it. Not that I didn't trust her.
No.
Okay, so the employee thing is 11:30 to 12:30 or 11:30 to 1?
I think 11:30, 12:30, one break. I think, but let me confirm.
I didn't eat all that frosting.
A lot of broth to eat.
Finally,
It
hit
was
the
a
limit.
lot.
Hit the limit.
Yeah, I hit my limit.
That was a true story. That was a true story. My baby,
Oh, yeah.
The cake for you.
Afterward.
I was laughing when you
Got time.
said that. That was cute.
$1.80 an hour.
Everything has a date in it.
Yeah, right? Yeah, this is true.
Are we ready, Jen? Ready, everybody? Hi, Matt.
Hi,
Thanks for being here.
no problem. I will try to be quick for you so that you can move on in your agenda. The first item is an annual grant approval. The Emergency Management Performance Grant. It's provided by FEMA, facilitated by the state. This year, it will cover 40% of my salary, so we got a little bit of a bump this year. But it's pretty straightforward, no surprises with any additional requirements or additional forms to be signed. So we have all the physical signatures identified for the chairman, and then we'll have digital signatures on the quarterly reports as I submit those.
Commissioner Lautner?
Yes, I move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to allow the chairman of the board to sign the EMPG, the Emergency Management Performance Grant work agreement, and other documents related to this agreement, and to allow the Leelanau County Office of Emergency Management to submit electronic signatures for the required quarterly reports.
Support.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. So the Agra Valley Tower lease agreements, as we heard from Chris Shar, Agra Valley had to change how they're going to receive their backhaul. So they have decided to provide their own through microwaves, which required them to put additional equipment on the towers. So we do have to modify the lease agreements in order to identify those pieces of equipment and modify the rent accordingly. So we are in negotiations with the county attorney, but since we do want to get this taken care of as quickly as possible so Agra Valley can turn on their service, I wanted to get this before the board this month in order to get approval pending attorney's review.
Commissioner Soto?
Do we have a?
Thought I did.
Commissioner Lautner?
I'm waiting for Patricia. She's
Okay.
speaking.
Thank you. I move to recommend to the County Board of Commissioners to approve the First Amendment to the Tower Space Lease Agreement for Agra Valley Services at the Central Tower and Maple City Tower and Amina Tower. Let me pause a moment. Do they need it at the Central Tower?
They do have equipment on the central tower. We do have a lease agreement there as well.
But do they have backhaul? You're just keeping all the leases together?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I'll start over. Move to recommend to the County Board of Commissioners to approve the First Amendment to the Tower Space Lease Agreement for Agra Valley Services at the Central Tower, Maple City Tower, and Amina Tower sites, and authorize the County Board Chairman to sign each First Amendment pending corporate council review and approval.
Support.
Moved and seconded. Any questions for Matt?
I have a question. What happened with the band's backhaul?
I don't know exactly what happened with that. I do know that they did have some unfortunate, I don't want to say decision-making, but it was kind of internal that some prevented them from allowing the backhaul service. Some of it was external, so it wasn't all the band's fault. But all best intentions, they were an obvious source for that backhaul, and unfortunately for Point and Agra Valley, it just wasn't feasible, at least not in the immediate. So Point and Agra Valley have to find different ways to support their backhaul. Sorry.
Been moved and seconded. All those in support of the motion say aye.
He's got-
What's your question? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I said there was, but I'll ask you afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, all those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. I'm sorry, Commissioner Lautner.
That's okay. I guess I'll ask it. So we're gonna, because this is just a recommendation for Tuesday, I support it, but suppose there's another backbone within the county. We could still have these lease agreements in place, and if they could pursue another that's a hard fiber line, then they can use them or not use them, correct?
Correct. That would still be their decision. We just wanted to identify it on their lease agreements because they'll be occupying different heights on the tower as well.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Tower update.
So the tower update, we have earth moving already, which is great. So the foundation is in, the tower should be delivered, the structure itself will be delivered this week. One of the crew members did have a family emergency, so the Midway administrators, their pilots, they did fly the employee home late last night. So there might be a little bit delay with continuing the work this week, but they're still on schedule to finish by the end of the month. We do have conversations going on with the road commission as far as the driveway requirements. Chet and I will be meeting with Brendan tomorrow, I do believe. And we'll have that all worked out with the tower development, getting power from Cherryland Electric to the tower site. There will be some efforts on our part to do that. We're seeing how much we can do on our own in order to make it a cheaper impact on the county as well. So we're figuring that out. Hopefully we can have an update for you very soon in order to see what we can do about that. But we are on track to have this tower completed. And I think that we have seen a lot of work being done, but once the steel starts going up, people will really see what's happening. So very excited.
Questions for Matt? Yes.
Congratulations. It's been a long haul.
Yeah.
We appreciate your hanging in there through all of the
Thank you.
ups and downs that have come along, but
Yes.
thank you, Matt, for all your work.
Mhm.
If you get a chance to leave, if you want to just drive by, look at the work that's taking place there.
Yeah, I've been driving by.
Once the tower comes, they'll be put up quickly.
Yeah.
That's the easy part. It's getting everything ready to get the tower on. It takes time.
I had a compliment, so I wanted to say, if we all think back to a couple of years ago, we nearly allowed someone else to have their tower here, we had no control of it.
Mhm.
We kind of said, let's look at this a little differently, right? And you did that. And here we are. So this will be our tower. We control this tower and we're gonna be in a good place with it. So thank you for that.
I agree. I think that was the best decision that we made in order to keep it our own. Absolutely.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you.
Now we have a fully certified and endorsed equalization director.
Laurel has graciously volunteered to run my presentation for me, so we'll see if it appears somewhere. I don't know.
Thanks, I think you saw share.
Great. There we go.
Thank you.
Is that your higher level?
There's not. The 4 is the high. 4 is the highest. Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations.
So yeah, thank you. Yeah, Laurel also graciously printed the PowerPoint, so we've probably killed every tree in Leelanau County with these reports. But
Oh, thank you.
Just say this, there's no
So
change.
you probably didn't have time to see my email just now, did you?
I did not. So this is just, this is under tab 1. So every year the Equalization Department presents an overview of the apportionment report, and the report itself, which is the L4402, demonstrates how the total taxable value of all the taxable property in the county is distributed between the various townships, villages, taxing authorities like Beta, the library, school districts, fire and ambulance authorities. And the 4402 shows how each unit's taxable value is applied against the millages each unit is levying, and how that translates into the revenue that that unit is receiving. So just what's quoted here is MCL 211.37, which I'm obviously not gonna read the whole thing, but that outlines the statutory duties of the Board of Commissioners as relates to apportionment. And the statute just requires that the Board of Commissioners meet in an apportionment session prior to October 31st every year. And the submission of the 4402 to the state is due by November 30th. And this is to accommodate the elections in November, because there may be millage requests that appear on that November ballot for 2022. And for this year, there are. If you go to the next slide.
So in
Yes.
1983, was that Headley?
Headley was 1975.
75.
Proposal A is 94. Headley,
And yes, and proposal is 94.
Correct.
So what was it, 83, they just changes, but not as big as Headley and.
oh,
right?
correct, yeah.
Okay.
Just when it was last updated.
Okay.
So there are going to be millage requests on the ballot in Leelanau Township and Solon Township. In Leelanau Township, they're asking for renewals of their facility improvements, road improvement and equipment millage, and their police services millage. And then a new millage is for the library. And then in Solon Township, they're asking for a renewal of their fire and ambulance, 2.5 mills, 2022 to 2023. So those would be inclusive of 2022. So they're basically putting those on the November ballot in the hopes that they're going to get funding for this year, because they didn't put them on the ballot earlier in the year, which is typical, but so it's sort of that's their last shot for voters to approve funding. And so depending on the outcome of these millage requests, we'll probably have to revisit this apportionment report and do revisions, because I just don't know whether or not those are going to pass or not. But I would anticipate, since they're renewing millages that expired, that they probably will pass. So we can go to the next slide, please. So this is just a cover. It's a map of the top 10 owners by acreage in the county. The owner with the most acreage, as you're probably all aware, is the Park Service with 45,527 acres. That's across 241 parcels. And then the next largest owner is the state of Michigan, and that's 8,434 acres across 92 parcels. So if you compare the top two owners, the feds, the state of Michigan, that's only 18%. They only own 18% of what the federal government owns in Leelanau County. So that kind of highlights the importance of the federal impact aid program that we have, where that exempt acreage, the townships that have that exempt acreage, the school districts that have that exempt acreage are receiving some funding back from the feds, and because of that impact aid program. So that's important for them, because there's so much of their acreage, particularly in Leland Public School District and Glen Lake. So much of their acreage is in the park. So then if you look at tab 2, should be the next slide.
Excuse me, you know what, I believe 40% of Cleveland Township is national park.
Correct, right, yep. Yep, Leland and Glen Lake Public School Districts seem to have the most acreage that are in the park. So tab 2 is the top 10 owners in the county ranked by the taxable value. It just lists, these are our top 10 owners with their number of parcels, the product or service they offer, their taxable value for 22, and then the percent of taxable value that each owner represents of the whole. And these top 10 represent 2.27% of the total taxable value for the county. And that's down from 2.39% last year. But if you look at, the services they offer, they're pretty diverse, but they're also, if you were to look back at previous year reports, you'd see they're pretty stable. It tends to be the same top 10 taxpayers every year, and they sort of shuffle up and down the list. Chesapeake Media was on the list last year. They were at number 10. And that's the company that owns the property on M72, where Up North Live, 7 and 4 News is located, where they broadcast out of. And they were replaced this year by Murata LLC, and that's the owner of the private owner on Fox Island. They own about 2,600 acres on Fox Island, and the rest of Fox is owned by the state. So really, it's a diverse group, but It's a stable group. And this is information that we always provide to bonding agencies and that sort of thing. So we keep track.
So what is Glen Arbor Properties? Who's that?
You know what? I'm not sure who Glen Arbor Properties is.
Is it Homestead, do you think? They sell their property.
Well, this says.
I think, I don't want to guess.
Yeah, I don't, and I wouldn't want to guess
I
either.
could-
I could, if we looked at the individual parcels, if we had our database and we looked at the individual parcels, we could probably figure out, you know, who exactly it is, but the owner name is Glen Arbor Properties. So we'd have to dig deep to figure out, well, who exactly is that, and then what they own.
Andrew, the same question with the Celebrate Life Trust.
So Celebrate Life, that is is it Cancer Centers of?
That's what I thought it was. That's
Right,
the
correct, up in
Cancer Centers
Leland.
in America.
Correct.
And probably his daughter's house. I mean,
There's two listed.
There's two. I don't know if his daughter's house is within the Celebrate Life Trust or if that's just
The two parcels.
it's two, Celebrate Life Trust is two parcels, but I don't know if the family has parcels in different names. So then tabs 3 through 7. Tab 3 is countywide statistics, top 10 parcels by SEV, top 10 owners by total taxable. And in the past, we've gone through these stats sort of page by page. For the sake of brevity, we don't have to do that. But if you have questions about a specific unit or a particular taxpayer that's on one of those lists, I'm happy to dig into those for you. Tab 4 is probably the most interesting. It's the top 10 owners by taxable value in each township. So if you wanted to know, okay, well, who are the top 10 in Glen Arbor or Casson or Solon, that's the tab. Tab 5 is top 10 owners by taxable in the city of Traverse City within Leelanau. Tab 6 is our top 10 in each village. And then tab 7 is the top 20 owners by taxable value in each school district. So if you do have specific questions about individuals on those lists or about the composition of those lists, you can feel free to swing by and we can dig into them if you have more questions about those. Tab 8. Laurel, if you go back one. One more, Laurel. Whoop, go back. One more, please. One more. Thank you. So this is the taxable value for Leelanau County since Proposal A was passed in 94. This is tab 8. So the 2022 taxable value for Leelanau County is $3,317,449,286. And that's an increase of 6.25% from last year. And just interesting, from 94 to 2022, it's a 258% increase across that period of time.
So you've got 2022 on here, but is that just like through June or? Or was this the beginning of the year?
Correct. So we know what the assessors go out and they look at properties all through 2021 to determine what the assessments are going to be for 2022.
Right.
So at the start of the year, everyone gets their assessment notice, and then taxes are levied twice throughout the year, in July and then in December.
Interesting year over next year. At this beginning of
Correct.
2022 would be interesting. Okay.
So Laurel, if you could go forward a couple of slides. Okay, keep going. One more, thank you. So, oh, no, sorry, go back one to page 6. Thank you. So this is tab 9. This is just, again, showing the breakdown of that taxable value between all the classes. So between your agricultural, commercial, industrial, and residential classes. And as you'd expect, residential is our largest class. It's 91.57% of the total taxable value is in that residential class.
This is the one that always gets me. I mean, you drive around our county and you see all this beautiful farmland, and it represents 3.24%.
Right.
But this was thank you for that. This is why I sent you this email. So this was my question, because residential, the 91% is residential, but that's how many households? It's like 2,000
Oh, yeah, I mean,
households.
correct.
Okay, in the ag, yeah, it looks like only 3.24%, but how many households?
Right, I mean, I don't know an exact
500,
number.
I think 500 might be on the high side.
I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
guess,
That's
but
okay.
yeah, I mean, obviously, right, like on the farm, you've got,
You got that many households with that taxable value. So, I was looking for an actual.
right, so the agricultural class includes both your farm fields as well as parcels that may have the farmhouse on it. So, I mean, they're residential, but they're class ag.
That easily could, within that 91%, 1 mil is gonna cost someone $40. But then in that ag class, it could be $1,000. Or it could be $600. That's the difference. Yeah. Thank you.
So would you estimate that, you've checked with me kindly a couple of times, the percentage of waterfront homes in terms of taxable value, and it's always been like 51%.
Correct.
Is that pretty much staying?
It's been pretty stable. It seems to be about that 50-50.
Well, within that, then what would be interesting is those waterfront properties, because I actually was talking to one, I said, you probably pay what, my tax is 10,000 a year, or whatever. They probably pay that on their home because it's a beautiful home on the lake.
Right.
So, but how many on the lake of those are non-homestead?
Right, correct. And that's been about 50-50 as well. It's usually relatively close to 50, maybe a little under, maybe a little over. It varies year to year because you have people coming in, moving and that sort of thing. But in recent years, it's been about 50% homestead, 50% non-homestead within the residential class. So then Laurel, if you will advance us one slide, please. So this, and then we have personal property and utility personal is the largest in this class, 67.2%. And that represents, for the most part, personal property that's owned by Cherry Land, DTE, Consumers Energy, and that's your electrical and gas transmission infrastructure. So that's all considered personal property. And then if we flip to tab 11, this is just a combination of our real and personal. And again, residential is still our largest at 89.7%. But this gives us a total breakdown of that taxable value. And Laurel, if you want to do one more. This is under tab 12. This is the map of the top 10 owners by taxable. It shows just where each of these taxpayers are located throughout the county. And obviously the taxable value for Consumers, DTE, and Cherry Land, since that's all personal property, they don't really show up on the map, right? Because their personal property it's not a real property. It's the transmission lines and that sort of thing. But if we look at that, we mentioned Murata LLC earlier today. That's nearly all of Fox Island. So you can see that in the purple there. And then if we go to tab 13, so Laurel, one page, thank you. So the focus of the documents under tab 13, these are our exempt properties. These are often overlooked because there's no taxes being generated on them, but about 27% of the county's total land area is off the tax rolls as a result of some form of exemption. So then as we mentioned, the biggest exempt landowners are the feds with Sleeping Bear Dunes and then the state of Michigan.
It's 20%, did you say?
Well, it's 27%, about 27% of the land area is exempt for one reason or another. So that could be, conservancy, could be owned by the county, the township, the state, nonprofits. They would have some form of exemption. And then this list here, which is several pages, I think 20 pages, is just our list of all the exempt properties where we've attempted to identify each exemption by type. So the second column gives that type. So the first few on this list that you see is our cemetery and then church, conservancy, we have nonprofit, Grand Traverse Band, township, state, school. So what we've tried to do is go in and look at those exempt properties and identify what exactly they are. And then we've also, on the final column is the true cash value, where we've attempted to, since the assessors typically don't value them because they're exempt. So we've put an estimate of the land value on there to give an idea, to give some sort of estimate of what the true cash value of these exempt parcels are. In the case of property owners with exempt buildings, we've mailed letters asking to try to get insurance values. Yes, go ahead.
I have a question for you. In the middle of the page, the page is on the screen. I see, it's probably almost dead center. 10160 East Pickwick Court. You see that?
Yep.
That's a residential street through there. And so my question is, if they're a church operating out of a private home, does that home then become exempt?
Correct. Yep. So they would have that exemption. If that's like a parsonage, for example, for like a Catholic church, that would be exempt.
Okay.
Yep.
That would make sense. Thank you.
Correct. Rectory, sorry. It's parsonage with a different.
Yes.
So do we have a sense of, we hear about hedge funds buying up homes or short-term rentals and rentals. Do we have a sense of how much that's happening here?
My office doesn't. I mean, we know who the property owner is based on the deed, but who that is, we don't know. I mean, we could track if an owner has many parcels, we could maybe look at them and see, well, these are rentals, but we wouldn't know exactly who exactly the owner could be.
Several months ago, when Jonathan Oldendorf came, he gave a percentage of how many those are. I don't remember, Rick, do you remember? Or Ty, you at the road reading. It's not as great as we think it is in Leelanau County. He's saying it's not a major factor. But I don't remember the percentage. He did have it. I can try to find out. Because we have.
I think that's something we should keep our eye on.
It was lower than most people think it is. So.
And that's probably something that he's pretty clued into because he's looking at the MLS and tracking those sales of those like rental properties and that sort of thing. So he's gonna just be more tied into those owners than necessarily we would be, because we're just looking at sales, not necessarily rentals or.
Well, there's a difference between rentals and second home ownerships too.
Correct.
So he did clarify that, but the actual amount of rental homes, it's not as great as most people think it is.
Andrew, if you know, they're looking at exemptions on nonprofits. Would the exemption be for a portion of the property or for the entire? Do you know? Well, you probably also would know, but I mean.
So the exemptions, depends on what the exemption is. So the exemption can be for a portion of the property, or it can be for the whole property. It just depends on what exactly the exemption is.
Okay.
Yeah, and the language that the exemption has. One of the things that we've, and if Laurel, if you go to our next slide. One of the things that assessors have been doing over the last couple of years is the state tax commission now requires that assessors code their parcels. Parcels used to be coded either taxable or exempt. Now they need to be coded either taxable or exempt, and then they have to cite the MCL, what exemption it actually is. So if you go one more slide, Laurel, thank you. These are hard to see, but these are all of the valid exemptions that are currently in our database that the assessor can select from, and they should have some form of documentation to say, well, why is this parcel exempt? So they could be exempt because it's state-owned property, or it's a church, or it's a Boy Scout camp, or it's a pollution control facility, for example, on ag parcels, if they're mixing their whatever they're spraying on the cherries, those buildings are often exempt because they're a pollution control building. And then the owner typically provides like a certificate or something like that to the assessor to demonstrate, yes, I have this exemption.
Thank you.
On the flip side, if a nonprofit leases space or land, then that becomes taxable. For example, when I was director of county service at the college, we leased some space out. We automatically had to pay tax on that percentage of the property. Well, sometimes you see nonprofits are paying taxes and people ask why. It gets to be complicated. There's no,
Correct.
just because you're nonprofit does not mean you do not pay taxes.
Mr. Lautner?
Well, I just noticed that Benton County has quite a valuable piece. It's got to be a gravel pit.
It is, yep. Yeah, I always think about that when I drive by, because it says, I think it says, property of Benzie County, and it's like, this is north of M72, so I don't know.
So, yeah, so they own a piece within our county and then don't pay any taxes on it besides.
Correct, and I don't know how that, but it is a gravel pit.
Consider USA, or just our national parks.
Correct.
When I saw I saw the road commission on Dunn's Farm Road, it has a teeny sliver, is it probably like is that a drain or a outlet or?
Yeah, they have a few tiny slivers. I think there's a couple small ones where they used to have sort of almost small gravel pits. I know there's one kind of out by where the Noonans have their property. There's one right on the curve in the road between Maple City and Cedar. So Laurel, if you'll go to the next slide, please. So the next few sheets in your packet are just a comparison of where Leelanau County ranks compared to the other 83 counties in Michigan. Leelanau overall is ranked 27th in taxable. In agricultural, where Laurel, if you could advance one. So this is just 27th. So that was a 6.25% increase from last year. And then one more, Laurel. Oh. So for agricultural, we're 39th. And one more. And then commercial, we're 37th. And then industrial, 69th. And then for residential, we're 19th. And that was a 6.6% increase from last year. And those tend to fluctuate one or two, up or down, depending on the year. And then Laurel, if you could go one more, please. Thank you. So tab 15, this is the actual, what's under tab 15 is the actual L4402, which is the official apportionment report. So page 1, this is just the certification statement. Page 2 is each of the units, so each of the townships with their taxable value and revenue. Page 3 is the authorities, 4 is the school districts, 5 is the intermediate school district, and then 6 is the homestead, non-homestead tax rates by unit. And then page 7 is the last page is the qualifying special assessment millage. So this report can be a little bit overwhelming, but there are a couple areas. There are a couple areas that are important. So Laurel, if you go ahead one. Oh, can you go back to, yeah, there you go. Oh, one, thank you, Laurel. So if you're looking at the first sheet, or the first sheet past the certification statement, the columns that I tend to look at are column L, which is the operating millage for each unit, and then column R, which is the total. It's the taxable value translated against that millage rate to come up with the total revenue for that unit. So those are the two columns that I tend to focus on.
L?
So the first column is L. That's the total operating millage for that unit. And then column R is where you're taking that millage and you're applying it against the total taxable value to get that total estimated revenue. And so these are the rates, this report, these rates and the estimated revenue are what you're certifying today. But obviously, as I mentioned earlier, there's a number of millage requests on the ballot that are going to impact the millage rate potentially in Leelanau and Solon townships. And so we'll have to come back after the election, more than likely, and approve a revised millage apportionment report. And then once that's approved, it goes to the state, and then we put it up on our website, and it's available through my office.
Any other questions for Andrew? There is on page 36 of our packet, a suggested motion.
Thank you. So in your column two, your local debts, like what might make that up?
So in some cases, like I guess I'm more familiar with the school districts. They incur debt for, like, for example, for building, like they'll have a bond to finance building. Yeah.
It's like a bond they got for something.
Right, yeah, this report, so basically the way this process works is just like a few weeks ago, you approved the L 4029, that was for the county. Well, every authority, every township and all the authorities, they also have L 4029s that they have to go to their boards to approve, and then all that documentation flows back to us and gets combined into this report. So really, like, we sort of just combine it, but everyone else does the actual hard work of running around and getting it approved and signing off on it. And then we just bring it all, equalization just brings it all together. And then we present it to you at the county level for approval.
Can I just ask a quick question? Tab 14. It said it's Leelanau County rate by value for the state, but every page is different. So what are the different categories?
Right, so under tab 14, it's on the very bottom, it's page 72. So that's the total real and personal value, that's the whole county. And then as you go to each page,
Oh, that's
so it says, it's at the top, it says RNP.
okay, TV ag. So that's
Correct, so that's
agricultural.
correct. And then commercial,
Thank you.
industrial rents, yep. And those are just kind of, we include those just because it's kind of interesting to see where other counties rank depending on, what it is that we're looking at, whether it's industrial or commercial. And you can kind of see which counties are similar to us in, for example, residential or in commercial or in industrial.
Any other questions for Andrew? Could I ask for a motion?
I move to recommend to the county board of commissioners to approve the county apportionment report L 4402. Support.
Second, any discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say. Motion approved 7-0. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations again.
And congratulations again for your.
Thank you. If you get hungry for more cake, I think we don't have any lack of it.
Trudy?
Hi. We have 2 items for you today. I think they're pretty simple. The first one is a renewal of a contract with Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency. That's for the rehab funds. And I'm pleased to announce that they spent all of the funds from last year on rehab projects in Leelanau County. They did need a little extension from the state and they got it. But all those funds are out the door now in loans for emergency rehab repairs, and they have a waiting list. So if we could get this approved, if you're accepting of giving them another extension, they will have almost another $40,000 that we have in program funds that they can put out again for more projects.
Okay, so none of those funds had to be sent back.
That's correct.
That's the good news. Okay. Yeah, I would move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve a 1-year contract extension with Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency for housing rehab services pending contract extension review by corporate counsel.
Support.
Moved and seconded. Any questions?
That motion that I gave you was from last week, so this is the document that the attorneys did give. So it's gone through the attorneys now for their review.
All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say. Motion approved 7-0.
Thank you. And then the second item is the US EPA assessment grant in the amount of $250,000. Now, this document, this is the cooperative agreement, and it's already been awarded to Leelanau County, so your choice is to refuse it or to accept it. There is no signature page on this document as far as EPA is concerned. The award is given already to Leelanau County unless you take the step to refuse it. But according to your grant policy, you always accept the grants at this level. So I want to make sure that this came before you. And like the past grants that we've received from EPA, we had it set up so that the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority will administer it on behalf of Leelanau County.
Commissioner Lautner.
I had a question, and you said
Sure.
that it was kind of a strange thing I was reading, so we automatically get them, but you have to furnish a notice of disagreement with EPA, or what is all of that within 21 days after the award? Is that if you don't want it?
That's
or-
correct. That was in the email that I
Okay.
forwarded. So if you
Yeah.
don't want it, then you would refuse it and we would send notice back to them and.
So the email and this notice of award is the same. That's what
Right,
it's all
same
means.
information. You just,
Okay.
if you want to refuse it, then let me know.
Wait for staff to do that. Okay.
If you want to accept it, there's nothing that needs to go back to EPA. We're ready to go, but for your purposes and for your records, you should accept
Okay.
it.
Yeah, just reading that kind of struck me as that was the same. Okay.
Commissioner Algar.
Motion to recommend that the Board of Commissioners accept the cooperative agreement number 00E03213 in the amount of $250,000 for the EPA assessment grant between Leelanau County and the EPA, with the LCBRA administering the grant on behalf of Leelanau County.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. And I just wanted to point out that on that EDS sheet, you'll show that the budget amount did not include this. This is a 3-year grant, so I'll work with our finance manager to make sure that we adjust the budget accordingly.
Before you go, you did hear back from the attorney on the home Habitat for Humanity TIF.
Yes, that's correct. So we cannot proceed without township's
Everybody get
approval.
that email?
I did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yep.
Okay, we have Finance, Human Resources, non-union uniform gun allowance request.
Good morning. We're just here to present to you the request to pay out the non-union employees who aren't covered under the contracts for the gun and uniform allowance.
Page 57 of our packet.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Lautner.
I move to recommend to the County Board of Commissioners to approve the uniform and gun allowance for the following non-union personnel through payroll with appropriate taxes withheld if receipts are not provided. Sheriff, $250 for gun plus $575 for uniform and $825 under sheriff. Same. For bailiffs, 2 at $150 uniform and 2 at $75 each. Those expenses to come from 73742 with the sheriff's budget. Marine deputy, $150 for uniform. Junior Marine deputies, 4 of them, $300 uniform, 2 at $100 each, 1 at $75, 1 at $25. Expenses to come from 742 Marine budget.
Support.
And that's just as stated because I read it.
Second, any questions? Yes, Skip?
Typically, this says no receipts need to be provided to the county. Is that how we've operated historically?
Yes. If
excuse me, if they don't provide receipts, then it gets taxed as a taxable income. If they do provide the receipts, then we pay them that amount separately.
Okay, got it.
Other questions? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Barry?
Jerry, you can skip that 45-minute PowerPoint. you have. Jerry, just say we're gonna skip that 45-minute PowerPoint you have on the generators.
Right there.
This is simply a review of our contract with Graham Election for maintenance of the generators.
Morning. We have that on page 58 of our packet. I'd like to go with Graham Motors. Mike and his company have been with us for decades, different times, and very reliable. And always there when needed, different hours. So it's close to home, Traverse City, and their contract states with 3,700 per year. I'd like to go 4 years. He said he's good with that. He was very open to the cost. That includes load banking for the 2 larger generators, or 3, I should say. The 2 here on this campus and the one at Central Tower. That pertains, load banking is where they come in with a separate unit, tie into the generator, and it acts as though the generator would be on full power. And this unit, I'm not an electrician, but it ramps up the generator to make sure that it can hold a certain amount of wattage, amperage for so many hours. So that will handle the building. That's what that load banking generally is. And if we do the little ones, which we don't have to for the smaller towers, the 10 kWs, that costs $100 extra just for that, but we don't usually do that.
Yeah, I move to recommend to the County Board of Commissioners to waive policy on bid requirements and renew the agreement with Grand Motor and Generator Services of Traverse City for 4 years at $3,700 annually, pending council review and approval. Funds to come from 631-801-000.
Support.
Any questions for Jerry?
Quick comment, I think have the signing as soon as possible.
Yeah, he's there to cover for us if we do have a problem, so we're good. All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes 7-0. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you for your time.
We have our administrators.
Okay, opiate settlement, last month I notified you that we scheduled to receive $9,000 as part A of the 2022 payment for the lawsuit. I was assuming we'd have part B by now. That has not happened yet. So I don't have an update other than that we're still working on the final settlement for part B, which will happen. So if it comes, we'll give you an update, let you know how much that amount is. I'm guessing it's going to be about 6,000-7,000. At some point, you have to decide how you're going to allocate this fund, but that's down the road. I just don't have any more updates other than that. We have not received the second notification. And but just keep going because on the finance audit committee, I've scheduled a meeting for Thursday at 3:30. I believe that's right, 3:30. Yeah, and just to provide an update on the transition to the finance department recommendation. Also, some discussions about additional license for our software. We are limited in Harris, and I mean, I'll give you more details on the meeting on how many people can be on at one time. But now that the finance department, the clerk's office, and treasurer's office, there are times where employees cannot get on because we are limited to the number of people that be on at the same time. So we'll give you an update on that recommendation and go back to the full board. Recommendation. That's what's coming up next week. And the administrator search update, I just passed out the schedule. It's the same as was emailed to you a week ago or so. I suggest you move this forward to next week's meeting because by next Tuesday you'll be done with the interviews. And if it's on the agenda, you can move it forward to next Tuesday.
And the questions that we were going to interview questions, we've got a lot of paper. Everybody know where we are in that?
And I will print them up again for all of you.
Okay.
So you'll get a sheet, as I think I emailed to all of you.
Yeah.
All the questions are in there. The ones that you asked already were italicized, so you can tell, and I think they're in different font. So you'll see the questions that were asked. The other questions are still there. I think what we talked about is just using it as a guideline. You each take turns asking questions that you feel are critical, and then feel comfortable to do follow-up questions also. So more of an informal, in-depth time, when you have more time than you did the first round.
If it's okay, we'll just start and we go right around the room and each ask the next question or whatever question you want to ask.
I would encourage you to, if you have, ask follow-up questions. A lot of times you get more in-depth answers, or maybe lack of in-depth answers on follow-up questions.
Don't remember the questions that we're not supposed to ask. Thank you, Jeff.
Is there a motion moving forward?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to move that up to next week's agenda. All those for the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion approved 7-0. Review of financials, Jared.
Again.
I am not all the way through claims and accounts yet.
Okay.
We had a debate last night, so
Yeah,
I'll
email me if
continue-
you've got-
Yeah, I will.
Yeah,
contact you
or just call me.
Sure, I don't know if anybody else, same with post.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
It was large, so 5 million.
It was a lot. Yeah. There were a few very large payments, of course.
Annual things they're touching up, okay.
Right. So,
Yes, you
There's-
pay your taxes out through post audit.
Yeah.
So anything you collect goes to state.
some of the treasurer stuff.
Okay, so it's an annual.
Yep, so every,
Yep.
from July collection till December and into February, you'll be sending state ed payments.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Review those, and if you have any questions before next week, call Jared.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Special report by staff, commissioners, or affiliated agencies.
The beta millage is on the ballot in November, and you'll notice signs, few signs going up around the county. I look forward to their presentation. But anyone we can give information to about the beta millage is very important. It's not changing. The allocation is not changing. They are rebuilding their service. They've taken some active steps to hire people. They got creative. She said, Kelly Dunham said that, I think it was at this meeting where she heard about, I don't recall what the instance was, of giving bonuses to new hires if they'll stay. So they did that. They offered people $10,000 if they'll commit to 3 years. And then after 3 years, their hope is they'll realize they're building a retirement and they'll stay. And they hired quite a few people that way. And she said she got the idea sitting in our meeting. I wonder where they stole those people from. But they're getting people with, who want pensions. So they are really doing their best to rebuild their service. We had a report this week I found so interesting. Their propane buses cost a third of what diesel in terms of purchase, repair, and cost to operate. Cost a third of what diesel does and half of what gas. They have quite a few propane buses and more on order, and they have electric buses on order, but the wait time is very long.
Thank you.
I was just gonna comment, their service is excellent. Their door-to-door service a lot of people don't know. I mean, that's what we used coming home from the hospital, which doesn't sound, you just call and schedule it. And the hospital wasn't aware of this, so they are now. I mean, the other option is EMS, which is hundreds of dollars, as opposed to, as my husband was a senior, rode for $1.50. So it's something people keep in mind, and they're all handicap equipped and have wheelchairs. It's great. Great service.
Yeah. They discontinued the route to Glen Arbor, Maple City, et cetera, but they have link service. And I think you're right.
An update from the health board meeting this week. Eric did present to us his progress on the septic ordinance rewrite. Hopefully there will be some language to look at by this board and the Benzie County Board and the health board in sometime in November with public hearing. Correct. Oh, you weren't there. Melinda?
I will miss the Parks and Rec meeting tomorrow. Have Commissioner Robbins pitch it for me on a motion that I can get through. I will miss meeting, as Jeff said, I'm going to be in Washington DC on the Enterprise, so I'm getting pretty excited about it. I gotta tell my husband he's gone. I did forget to do that. So, I will do that tonight and that'll do it.
Yeah.
He probably wouldn't miss me. I have to say anything.
Just text him.
Well, have a good trip.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? This time we have public comment. Any public comment?
No, sir.
You said everything you were going to say last night.
Did I do well or not?
You find out
Most
November 8th.
we've ever heard you say.
That was a good time last night, and it was really, to have the people come and it was fantastic. All of you guys did really good.
This very high debate. The house was full. It was very nice.
Any commissioner comments? Rick?
Next question, where we at as far as any more art climbing? Still up in the air?
It's anyone's guess. Most of our saying it's gonna be after the November election.
Okay.
The money's there. State has to spend it, but they have to 2024, it's like we do it. Most are saying everyone's gonna wait till after the November 8th.
And what made Port Huron worth it for me was there was a rep from the My High office, which just opened in July. So they are giving out fiber money from the ARPA funds. And so we heard about that process. We're way ahead of them. I got in front of that woman as fast as I could and told them that we are ready to contract Chris Sharon, Patricia Sotis Little or Ty. Because we are ready. So that's hopeful. I don't think they're waiting till after the election for that. They just need to get their act together.
Rick, did you want to say something about habitat and volunteer?
Yeah, that was scheduled tomorrow, but we got slammed with meetings this week and some people are gone, but what I want to try to do is get with the CEO there, see if we can get something maybe before the election. What I'd like to see is open it up to all 7 of us and all the candidates that are running too, that we all go as a group.
Okay, so it's off for tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe hopefully they have some walls up, maybe we can get, be inside and maybe just do some painting. I drove by there last night. Like 2 buildings are up and the third one has a foundation.
Keep this posted.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, commissioner comments?
You mentioned possibly the 15th. I have it penciled in. Is that a possibility?
I don't think the 15th works for.
Oh, for some people. Okay.
Yeah, so
I'll
I'll let you know by next Tuesday night.
Okay.
Okay, we're now down at approval of financials. Commissioner Lautner?
I would recommend approval of claims and accounts $82,716.49.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes 7-0.
I would recommend approval of post audit $5,670,573.38.
Discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes 7-0. Motion to adjourn.